Hey everyone, this is What If Fan bringing you another part of What If Reborn in Naruto world. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name in the description below. Please make sure to support the creator. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 16. Hinata sure had changed. A lot. Daiki watched the older girl leave, and he had to admit it, she was rocking the confidence and her new outfit. She had all the energy of that alter Hinata from the Road to Ninja, without the raging bitch to go along with it. She wasn't his match at all during their spar, but she just kept on coming no matter the punishment he gave her, and the way she seemed to not flaunt her body or even relish in the attention but accepted his ogling with a confidence he'd never seen in her. No doubt about it. Hinata was hot as fuck. He'd actually had to resist grabbing a few gropes here or there, or outright looking through her clothes with his eyes. I'm surprised, I have to admit, with how greedy you are. I thought you'd jump on the chance to take the girl and fulfill your desires, Aisabu mused. The girl was clearly receptive to your leering. He had noticed that as well actually. She'd full-on stuck her breasts out more for him to look at when she noticed he was staring, and didn't shy away from him leering at her tits while he was healing her. That's just because I'm the one that fueled her confidence in the first place. Daiki shrugged. He had a feeling, if he pushed with her, Hinata would let him play with her. But he wasn't going to. A cunt he may be, but he and Hinata were more or less friends. He wasn't going to take advantage of her leaning on him like that, it would be a complete scum move. She was in love with another guy anyway, grating as it was that he'd accomplished more than he thought with Hinata on making her actually have worth as a partner to support Naruto, and found himself desiring her himself. Mission failed successfully? Besides, as much as I would love to rail her till she has hearts in her eyes, my place is a shithole. Daiki pointed out. He wouldn't be bringing any girls back to his place until he got a better place. And that wasn't even going into all his other issues that would make him horrible boyfriend material right now. He wondered idly how much it would cost to get him a compound of his own. Maybe not one suited for an entire clan or something, but one with a big living space and general property area where he could train if he wanted. What about one with a nice big pond? Aisabu suggested. Like for koi fish? Daiki asked. I suppose, but more for me, the turtle Bijou replied. Hate to break it to you, but you're a bit too big to fit a pond, buddy. Daiki snorted at the mental image, imagining the leviathan of a turtle dipping one of his feet in a pond and barely covering a toe. Not like that, you fool, Aisabu huffed. I can form miniature clones of myself, remember? If you can form a summoning contract, I can link it to myself and you can use the contract to summon a clone of me. Huh, that could work. He vaguely remembered Naruto getting stuck inside Aisabu's stomach once and a horde of mini Aisabus trying to eat him alive. That would be a useful jutsu for dealing with multiple enemies. Summoning, Aisabu Horde Devourer. That would be a badass name for it as well. I just want to relax in some proper water when I can, but sure, feel free to weaponize my leisure idea, Aisabu sighed. You really do have a one-track mind. Earlier you were thinking about how you could create a seal that would have your clothes strangle someone for you in case they pinned you. Gotta keep up the grind set, buddy, was Daiki's only excuse. Speaking of the grind set. A rush of memories flooded his mind. One of his clones just popped. It was one of the ones working on water elemental manipulation. It looked like it was spreading what it learned so far to the other clones. He had 21 clones in total grinding away in Aisabu's dimension. 10 working on the water jutsu that Aisabu told him of through Yagura's, and holy fuck was there a lot, and that wasn't even going into the jutsu of other elements the dude knew. And another 10 working on the basics of water elemental manipulation, which started off from draining moisture from physical items that retained water, like leaves. The one left over was the main clone he made, to replace clones that popped themselves and be refilled on chakra by Aisabu. Once his chakra capacity grew, he'd be able to make even more and steadily increase the amount of clones he could use for his training. Yeah, he should totally work on that summoning scroll. Isobro was such a big help to him, he needed to show his gratitude. Please don't call me that. Aisabu groaned, he sounded in pain. He was about to respond, but just then, a familiar dark-haired teen walked into his training ground, though the Uchiha was looking over his shoulder oddly. "I'm popular today." Daiki snorted. "Hey," Sasuke greeted him, "what's with the Hyuga that just came from here? I hope a new girlfriend isn't gonna slow your training down. Kicking you around is good for my progress." Daiki raised an eyebrow. "You've never kicked me around before, even back in the academy you weren't that much better than me," he shot back. "And what do you mean, it's Hinata?" Sasuke gave him a blank look. "Who the hell is Hinata?" he asked, completely lost. "What? You know, the Hyuga heiress? Was in our class for 8 years? Daiki reminded. "Doesn't ring a bell." Sasuke shook his head. "This guy. She's on a team with Shino and Kiba. She stalked Naruto all the time?" Daiki added. Sasuke blinked, before his eyes widened. "Wait, her," he gaped. "What the heck happened? She smiled at me and everything. I remember that girl like hiding away when I met her eyes a few times." Daiki smirked, crossing his arms. "Some of my awesome rubbed off on her," he replied. "Ew, gross, wasn't she like Naruto's fangirl or something?" "She was a quiet one at least, if only the ones that followed me around were that quiet." Sasuke wrinkled his nose, shaking his head. "Well, if you're fine with a fangirl, how about Sakura? And Yamanaka? I give you my blessing to rub all over them. Granted, no idea why you'd want to, but have at it." "They really bother you, huh?" Daiki couldn't help but laugh. The boy always complained about them to him. "I make no attempts hide that, I've told them straight up, but they still won't leave me alone." Sasuke shrugged. "Also, what the hell is up with your eyes?" "Dujitsu," Daiki shrugged, "ran into a missing ninja on my last mission. His eyes were pretty damn powerful, so when I killed them I implanted them." Sasuke raised an eyebrow. "You trying to be Kakashi or something?" he asked, but otherwise barely reacted. "Not really, but they were just gonna go to waste." Daiki shrugged. "It's just like taking weapons from their corpses as well." Sasuke snorted. "You don't need to make excuses to me." He shrugged himself. "You didn't have a Dujitsu, now you do. Do you know how many people in the past wars tried to kill members of my clan for their eyes? I'll tell you, a lot. It's just common sense. I'd do it as well if I didn't have the Sharingan, the best Dujitsu by the way." He smirked and flashed his Sharingan on. See, this was why he was actually beginning to like Sasuke. The guy understood the grind. "You think so?" Daiki grinned challengingly and narrowed his eyes, focusing his chakra through his eyes. The air shimmered, and a clone appeared right next to Sasuke. "It lets you make clones?" Weird, the Uchiha noted, before swinging his hand out to hit the clone and no doubt dispel it. Only his hand went right through it as if it were a mirage. "What the hell?" Sasuke blinked, confused, and stared as the clone faded away before looking back at Daiki. "What was up with that?" "That was an illusion, but I couldn't see through it and I could see a chakra network that looked identical to yours in it." "Chakra ghost." Daiki's grin turned smug. "Even the Sharingan and Byakugan can't tell them apart from the real thing according to the last user. Just one of the many abilities these eyes have." Sasuke's smirk returned, but was full of excitement now. "Alright, that's a pretty neat trick, I'll admit," he admitted. "What else you got?" he challenged, sliding into the opening stance of the Uchiha Interceptor style. "Oh, a ton of shit, and one specifically I want to test against you actually," Daiki retorted. He had been wondering if masking his chakra network would make the Sharingan unable to copy his jutsu after all, "but I'm gonna have to pass on using you as a punching bag today, buddy." Sasuke eased out of his stance and raised an eyebrow at him. "Odd of you, you never turn down the chance to fight," he pointed out, "unless you have another mission that is?" "Nah," Daiki waved him off, "nothing like that. I've just come into a bit of money lately from missions and bounties I've cashed in." "And?" Sasuke prompted, other eyebrow joining the first. "I'm thinking of checking out some houses, get a nice place for myself." Daiki shrugged back. "My place is a shithole apartment I got given as a kid once I joined the academy and left the orphanage. I'm thinking it's about time I upgrade." "Makes sense, I suppose. Well, about as much as anything you do does," Sasuke nodded, giving a blatant odd look at the Isabu pauldron on his shoulder. "What kind of place are you looking for?" "A pretty decently sized one, I'm thinking," Daiki mused, crossing his arms. "A bit like the main house of your clan compound. One with enough space I can train at, and a pond is a definite as well. Maybe some place where it isn't too busy. I like my privacy after all." "Oh, is all that?" Sasuke gave him a deadpan look. Sure you don't want a waterfall out back and your own collection of maids while you're at it? You're the one that asked, dipshit, Daiki snorted. I'll make my own waterfall if I want one, and maybe if you're lucky, I'll convince Sakura and Ino to be my mates to save you from them. If only, Sasuke snorted back. So going by your words, you're learning water and earth ninjutsu as well now? Water jutsu, yeah, as far as earth goes though, Daiki responded and slowly ran through a set of hand seals, 10 in total, before crouching and slamming them on the ground, earth-style, barrier. In front of him, a large 20-foot-tall wall of earth shot up from the ground and about a foot or so wide. Then he punched it and watched it shattered apart, raising an eyebrow at Sasuke when the debris rained apart and showed him on the other side. I mean, it's not a bad jutsu really, Sasuke pointed out. It's not gonna stop any really strong jutsu, but not bad. You're just absurdly physically strong with stupidly big muscles. Jealous? Daiki taunted. Not especially, Sasuke shrugged, bulking up like you will only harm the way I fight. I mean, it clearly works for you, but I'd have to rework my fighting style if I ever went for a build like yours. Fair enough, Daiki nodded. He got that, and the guy was definitely right. His style relied on being pretty damn limber. As far as this jutsu goes, you could probably learn it yourself pretty easily, in an hour at most. It's not a great barrier but has its uses like you said, doesn't take much chakra either. The only problem with it is despite how low tier it is, it needs 10 hand seals. Honestly, he just remembered the Shinobi Alliance all learning it in like a few minutes to try and help ward of the Jubi's Bijudama and decided to try it out himself. Took him a half hour. Which went to show how easy the jutsu was, since he had no instruction on it and only knew what the final product looked like in the hand seals. That's so? Maybe I'll try it out later then, Sasuke nodded, before smirking as a thought apparently occurred to him. Maybe I'll teach Naruto it and have him spam it with his stupid clones. That idiot could use a little variety and ability to provide some support. He has the chakra for it, so a good idea. Daiki nodded, though, I honestly don't get your sensei. He should teach Naruto a fire jutsu and a wind jutsu, give the kid them, and with his clones, he'd be able to wipe out bandits in the hundreds in just a few seconds. Ah, like the combination I accidentally used with that Fu girl back in Waterfall, Sasuke noted, before shrugging. I don't get the guy either. Zabuza boasted about him knowing over 1,000 jutsu, be nice if he could toss some of that our way. He mostly just makes us spar against each other, against him, or do these stupid team exercises that is useful for fighting in a squad, but is utterly useless for what I actually want to do. Probably the basics I guess. Jutsu won't mean shit if you can't keep up with your opponent, like that shithead back in Waterfall showed us, Daiki mused. Still, he could definitely be doing more. It isn't as bad for you since you have your clan teachings and probably at least a few jutsu scrolls kicking around, and in the future you'll be easy to copy a ton, but Naruto and Sakura are getting fucked over in the long run that way. Kakashi sucks and a genin has a better idea on how to train his team. Nothing I haven't thought before, Sasuke snorted, but putting how unreliable Kakashi is out of mind for the moment. As far as your little house touring idea goes, I've got a place like that I wouldn't mind selling you. You do? Daiki gave him a confused look. Isn't that like your clan property though? And I have no clan residing there, Sasuke pointed out. I was thinking of selling some of the outer properties anyway. A bunch of annoyances on that civilian council that handles the business sectors and stuff of the village have been hounding me for a while about it. One in particularly wanted this property I'm thinking of. I'd rather sell it to you than have him live anywhere near me. So spite then, a wide grin spread across Daiki's face. I can totally get behind that. I figured, Sasuke smirked back. Alright, come on then, I'll show you the place. He wasn't at all expecting the place Sasuke showed him. For one, it was way bigger than he thought it was going to be. It looked for all intents and purposes like a Japanese-style mansion, all sliding doors and everything. And it was, he repeated, big. The place had 3 bathrooms, multiple in-house storage rooms, a large living room and kitchen, a dining room and 8 bedrooms, one of them being a much larger master bedroom. That was only the main house itself. On top of that, as requested, the place had a large koi pond, and he did mean large. It was at the front of the house, on both sides of the path leading towards the main house, the path built right over it. There were multiple gardens that, while untamed now, were most likely used for growing fruit and vegetables. And to top it all off, at the back of the property, there was a large spread-out yard, big enough to contain a large storage shed and moderate-sized training dojo and still have plenty of space left over for him to train. The place was run down for sure, because nobody had lived in it for years, but it was still connected to the electrical grids and stuff apparently, he'd just need to get them turned back on. So, what do you think? Sasuke asked once they were done. They were currently sitting on the back porch, overlooking the backyard. Want it? Yeah, I want it. Daiki looked at the boy as if he were crazy. Who wouldn't want this place? No way I can afford it though, this place is amazing, way fucking better than his shitty little apartment. I'll give it you to cheap, Sasuke shrugged in response, it's not perfect or anything and needs works done on it, so isn't worth as much as it used to be, and if you don't have enough, I'll let you pay it in installments over time. That could work. Sending a clone out every day when he was training to do a D rank was already pulling him in a nice tidy sum. He could just do multiple, he supposed. And there were always missing ninja out and about somewhere to hunt down. Alright, that works out well enough for me, Daiki agreed. How much you want for it? Sasuke shrugged again. Like I said, pretty cheap, I'll give you it for 10 million. Daiki's mouth dropped. That's it, he gaped. Sasuke smirked at his shock. I told you, cheap, he pointed out. Besides, the Uchiha land in general has went down quite a bit in value over the last few years with nobody to take care of the place and being pretty far from the interior of the village on top of what happened to my clan, civilians are a superstitious bunch, they think ghosts and demons or something are going to haunt them. A frown spread across his face as he finished explaining the reason why he was selling it so cheap. Daiki winced, the air becoming a bit melancholy around them. Actually, demons and ghosts are a real thing, he pointed out, changing the subject. Sasuke gave him an odd look, before huffing and rolling his eyes. Bullshit, the older boy retorted. No, I'm not kidding, Daiki shook his head and laughed. Hell is a literal real place, there's even a summoning clan that came from hell once, they got sealed in a bunch of doors though. Have you been doing drugs? Sasuke asked incredulously. Demons sealed into doors? Do you hear how stupid you sound? Hey man, Hashirama Senju could summon them, hell he used them against your ancestor Madara from what I hear, Daiki shot back. Actually, I even know where some kind of demon fucker is right now, calls itself Kajiboshi, it's not actually far from the village actually. He'd actually confirmed the place it appeared in was a real place. The thing was pretty damn strong considering it took a Shippuden three-tail cloak Naruto to beat it. He'd had the idle idea since Isabu told him about the origins of the Rashomon, about going after it and forcing it to become his subordinate. Sasuke was still giving him a disbelieving look. I'll believe it when I see it, he snorted. So you want the house then, he asked, moving on. Yeah, I'll take it. Daiki put the topic on the shelf for now and agreed. Actually, this is a pretty big place, who did it belong to before? It would have to be someone at least semi-important, right? A cousin of mine, Sasuke shrugged, his name was Shisui, this is where his family has lived for decades before. Wait, this place was fucking Shisui's house? As in Shisui of the Shunshin? Daiki wanted to confirm. You know him? Sasuke blinked, surprised. Only by reputation, Daiki explained quickly. Dude was a badass, he made the Shunshin actually full-on viable in combat and mastered it so well he could use it on the fly with no hand seals. I heard people compare him to the Yondaime Hokage a few times. Sasuke's lips quirked up. He was a pretty cool guy, he agreed lightly. Daiki agreed. Shisui was such a fucking badass. And his Susanoo was so fucking epic, the green coloring of it was so nice and it had a full-on drill arm. Too bad that cunt Danzo had to fuck everyone over. If he didn't, the village would have the full Uchiha clan still, alongside Itachi and Shisui, both who would no doubt be powerful S-class shinobi by this time. Then he wouldn't need to worry about the Akatsuki as much. He would have a freaking Itachi on his side after all. Fucking Danzo, he was why Konoha couldn't have nice things man. Daiki frowned, looking at Sasuke. Should he? He couldn't tell him all he knew of course, but he had an excuse. And he could give Sasuke some information in regards to what Itachi had been up to using Isabu as an excuse. And also put him on guard against Obito. The dude was being a pretty good friend to him right now. And he was suddenly feeling a little guilty about the knowledge he had that pertained to the other boy. Daiki pushed chakra into his eyes, enhancing his vision and allowing him to see chakra and through any obstacle. Then turned his eyelid from side to side. The only people that could hide from these eyes were people with these eyes. Not even Zetsu would be able to hide from him. Trick him, most likely yes, considering he could perfectly mimic the looks and chakra of another, but hide from him? Not a chance. Nobody. Daiki noted. The closest people were over 1,000 feet away. There weren't even any Umbu watching him or Sasuke. Why are your eyes glowing? Sasuke asked. Just checking to make sure nobody is spying on us. These eyes of mine can do basically everything the Byakugan can except the 360 vision, Daiki explained idly, before drawing the chakra from his eyes and focusing on Sasuke. Nobody around but us. You expected there to be, the other boy asked, raising an eyebrow. Can never be too careful, Daiki responded. What do you think? He asked internally. I'll leave it up to you. Isabu responded simply. He nodded. Actually, on the topic of your family, Daiki began, on my last mission, thanks to some things that went down, I've come across some information about your brother since he left the village. Sasuke's eyes abruptly widened in shock, before quickly narrowing. Tell me, he demanded, no nonsense. Usually, Daiki would probably make a quip about him being rude, but, he understood, this wasn't quite the right moment. Even just some passing information about Itachi was incredibly important to Sasuke. His brother was the guy's main driving force in life right now. What do you know about Jinchuriki? Daiki asked. Sasuke frowned, brows furrowing in deep thought. Power of the human sacrifice, he said. Is that some kind of suicide jutsu? Or some kind of power from killing people? Not quite, Daiki shook his head. Do you remember the Kyuubi? Considering how often it gets brought up, no, he huffed, impatiently. What about it? What does the Kyuubi have to do with this? I'm getting to it, you need context to understand, dude. Daiki rolled his eyes. The Kyuubi is what's known as a bijou, 9 of them in total, each with a specific amount of tails from 1 to 9, the Kyuubi being the strongest of them. And? Sasuke prompted. Bijou can't die, it's as simple as that. When they're killed, they just reform. Daiki dropped. They have to be sealed away, but not anything can work for that. It needs to be people to hold them for any length of time. These people are called Jinchuriki. And bringing this up in regards to Itachi means he's got something to do with these Jinchuriki or wants them for something? Sasuke caught on pretty quick. Quite, Daiki nodded. The thing about Jinchuriki is that they can usually use the power of the bijou sealed in them. Granted, that's simplifying it a lot and it comes with a lot of risks. But, being a Jinchuriki comes with a bunch of benefits, like massive chakra reserves, incredible endurance, a natural healing factor and depending on the bijou, special almost Kekai Genkai-like abilities. I see. Sasuke responded and fell silent for a moment, before, so I take it then, that Itachi is hunting these Jinchuriki for some reason. Going from what you told me, for the power being one gives? That, I'm not sure on, I just know he attacked a Jinchuriki and has joined a group that's all about that, Daiki replied. He did know what the real goal was, but he had no way of explanation as to why, so he kept mum on the subject. What I do know is that the former Mizukage was a Jinchuriki, a near-perfect Jinchuriki capable of using almost all of the power of his bijou, and your brother alongside the guy that Zabuza Momochi replaced in the 7 Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist, attacked him to steal his bijou a few months after he went rogue. Sasuke's eyes widened massively. The Mizukage, he sputtered. He didn't win, Daiki quickly assured him. His partner even got killed in the process, which is why he was replaced when his sword was reclaimed. But your brother managed to escape and injured the Mizukage in the process. The thing is, he apparently shot some crazy black flames from his eyes. His Sharingan was different as well from yours. It had some crazy shuriken-like pattern in them. Manjikyu Sharingan. Sasuke hissed. Yeah, that's what he called it, Daiki confirmed. The fire was called Amaterasu, by the way. The injuries he caused to the Mizukage was what made him lose against the rebellion against him like a year later, and he died. Sasuke clicked his tongue. So that guy Zabuza failed to kill, died because of Itachi? Kind of, Daiki nodded. That's not the only thing though. You know how there was a rebellion for years in the mist and everyone hated the Mizukage? Sasuke shrugged. Zabuza said something about it when we was bragging to Kakashi, he replied. Yeah, see, the Mizukage was a pretty nice guy apparently, Daiki revealed, until suddenly he wasn't. The thing is, his personality changed overnight, and I found out just recently as well, that it was because he was being controlled by a man with the Sharingan who claimed to be Madara Uchiha. Absurd, Sasuke shook his head. Madara is long dead, he was killed by Hashirama Senju over 50 years ago. It's mostly likely a pretender, Daiki agreed, but he does have the Sharingan as well, so unless he stole it from someone, he's most likely an Uchiha as well, especially since he and Itachi seem to know each other. Another traitor then? Sasuke growled, before shaking his head. Alright, this is a lot to take in. Do you have any proof about it? I heard it from the horse's mouth himself, or rather, the turtle. Daiki smirked, pointing at the Isabush-shaped pauldron on his shoulder. What? Sasuke blinked. I can't really get into the full thing, Daiki replied, but you know how I'm pretty damn good with seals? Vividly, my stomach especially remembers after you used that force palm jutsu of yours on me the first time. Sasuke remarked dryly. Well, I've been getting better and better lately, Daiki nodded, and during my last mission, I came across a member of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist, or well a former one, like Zabuza that you guys fought. Him, and a bunch of other crazy traitor ninja from the village of artisans teamed up together, because the bijou inside the Mizukage reformed in a lake in the land of rivers. Sasuke said nothing, just digesting the words. He was letting Daiki continue obviously before saying anything. They planned to, use the sandbai to make a bunch of super weapons and then attack the leaf with it, Daiki revealed. They'd planned it out a lot. With special eyes that could hypnotize the bijou and special armor and weapons that could drain its chakra and weaken it, so they could seal it or rather him, themselves. I see, your eyes. Sasuke realized. Daiki smirked. Yep, he confirmed. Basically, even with all their preparations, they were weak and exhausted, so I jumped in myself, sealed the bijou inside myself, broke it from the hypnosis and teamed up with it to kill them all. Sasuke went totally quiet and just stared at Daiki. For a full-on minute, he said nothing, and just seemed to digest everything he was told. So you're one of these Jinchuriki then and you can talk with this sandbai that you sealed in yourself, he asked. Daiki simply nodded. So the sandbai itself told you about Itachi then, and if it was inside the Mizukage, it would know all about the guy controlling him as well, Sasuke grimaced, before his eyes widened in what looked like panic, meaning, Itachi is out there right now hunting these other Jinchuriki, could have captured one or more already and gotten the power of these bijou to himself. He's not, Daiki was quick to assure him. If the other Jinchuriki disappeared, it would be big news like the Mizukage. Sasuke froze. How do you know? He asked, pressing. Because Jinchuriki are spread around the main villages, generally used to deter wars, Daiki explained. Sand has the 1 tail, Mist had the 3 tails and the 6 tails, Stone has the 4 and 5 tails, Cloud has the 2 and 8 tails, Waterfall has the 7 tails and Konoha has the 9 tails, and now the 3 tails with me. Oh. Sasuke swallowed. This is really big then, isn't it? Pretty much, Daiki nodded. If a Jinchuriki goes missing, their village will start pointing fingers and it might just lead to the 4th Great Shinobi World War. Sasuke clenched his fists. That bastard, it wasn't enough to murder our clan, but now this, he shook with rage. Daiki didn't comment and just let the boy sort himself out. A deep shuddering breath left the Uchiha and he stood up. I need some time to think, Sasuke said, giving him a tight nod. I'll get the money from you for this place later, but for now, I need to go. It's a lot to take in, yeah. Daiki agreed, bidding him goodbye with a small wave. Once Sasuke left the place behind, Daiki looked around himself and nodded. Guess I can start moving in and getting this place fixed up, he mused. Thank fuck for shadow clones. Chapter 17. How's this? Daiki asked, standing back to admire his handiwork. It's decent I suppose, but not really to my liking. Isabu replied half-heartedly. What's wrong with it? Daiki gestured to the pond he was standing before. He'd cleaned it all up, got rid of any nasty crap laying around in it and even replaced all the stones and stuff in it with nice shiny new ones. Literally, he fucking sanded them down to make them smooth and glossy because he couldn't find anywhere place that sold crap like that. He really needed to learn more earth jutsu. As it was, he was forced to use the coral palm jutsu to create some coral structures and the like to spread throughout the pond. Not to mention the literal structure he'd created for a mini waterfall. Now that was a pain in the ass, he'd had to send clones to the library and have them search for hours to find out how to do that. He'd put a lot of work into this damn pond. There's not enough vegetation in it. I like some moss in my water at the bottom, and while the coral structures are nice, I'd prefer ones with openings at the bottom I can get beneath and relax out of sight, Isabu rattled off. Also, I'd like some rocks that are easy to get atop that stick up out of the water like small platforms so I can come up and enjoy the sun as well sometimes. You've thought about this a lot. Daiki deadpanned. You're not one to talk, Isabu snorted back. Your training would be going so much better right now, if not for the fact that the extra clones you've been able to make since we got fully started have all been used to study house repair guides and manuals and creating the perfect bachelor pad, as you like to call it. Daiki winced. He had no comeback for that. He was up to having 30 clones out at all times a day now. The same amount were still being used for training though, while the new extra 9 clones running around were all assigned to maintenance on his new place. Alright, I'll give it a tune-up, Daiki relented. It wasn't like he'd filled it with water yet anyway. Any preferences for wildlife? People won't pay as much attention if there's a bunch of other critters in there with you. Get some koi I suppose, they draw the eye a lot, maybe add a few lily pads and some frogs I suppose, Isabu mused. By the way, that girl is still hanging around outside the property. I know. Daiki nodded. It just wasn't an issue, she wasn't exactly causing any harm. Nearly 2 weeks had passed since he returned from his mission to the village of artisans, built within the land of loot, land of rivers. He hadn't saw Sasuke much of all since he dropped the big news bomb on him. The older boy had collected the money Daiki owed him for the new place, and they'd sparred twice, but the boy was in an odd state between focused and distracted. It was weird. He'd actually saw Hinata more than Sasuke. She popped up at training ground 69 every few days to spar with him, and Daiki definitely wasn't going to turn her away. The experience of fighting a gentle fist user was not only helpful for his own fighting experience, but learning from her movements as well. If he really needed to, Daiki was sure he could copy some of the gentle fist and close tenketsu. It wouldn't be viable really mid-fight, because the taijutsu style didn't mesh well with his way of fighting, but it could definitely help for capturing people if needed and keeping them docile. Plus, watching her stellar rack bounce around with like every movement she made was a treasure for the eyes for sure. A week ago though, he'd noticed something. Hinata had a little follower who followed him to his training ground, and now to his new house. It was a girl too, who was spying on him. Adorable little Hanabi Hyuga. I suppose I'll fill it up for now. Daiki mused, putting the little girl out of mind for the moment. What Isabu wanted added could be done later once it was full. He'd leave a clone to it. Focusing his chakra, Daiki brought both hands into a seal and spread his energy out into the air around him. Hidden mist jutsu, he said. His chakra threaded through the moisture in the air and moments later, a thick, blinding mist spread throughout the property. It was so thick and full of chakra that without focusing chakra into his eyes, he couldn't see more than a few feet in front of himself. Grunting, Daiki focused on the chakra-filled mist, before using his chakra to draw it all together. The mist cleared up in moments, coming together and forming into a large sphere of water, hovering over Daiki's head. He flicked his fingers down, and the water sphere formed into a stream and poured into the pool, filling it up. Daiki whistled. Damn, has to be a good few thousands gallons in there, he noted, impressed with himself. It had taken a ton of chakra, but he put the training in water elemental manipulation his clones had been going hard at, to good use. Yes, this'll do. The water is much more pure and clean than normal thanks to your chakra. Isabu noted, pleased. Good. Daiki nodded, before bringing his hand to his neck and cracking it. Suppose I'll deal with my little admirer now as well, he mused. While he didn't mind her watching him for the most part. It would be kind of hypocritical of him to do so considering he could peek into the hot springs on the other side of the village from his living room with his eyes and had done so a few times, totally accidentally of course. But yeah, while she was watching him, he couldn't really go about his more clandestine training. Quickly, Daiki made a clone and switched places with it a split moment later, too fast for a little girl like herself to keep up with for sure. He hit his chakra completely using his eyes, before dipping around the building and moments later, silently landing behind his target, leaning against the outer west wall of his property, veins visible around her eyes and peering straight through the wall. Odd. Her hair was cut pretty short, framing her face. He was sure that only happened after the time skip and it was long during the Chunin exam finals. Then again, it was just a hairstyle change, so not really worth focusing on. Getting a good look? He spoke up, crossing his arms and eyeing the girl in amusement. Hanabi gave a startled jump, before whirling around, Byakugan blazing and falling into the gentle fist-opening stance on instinct. You, she glared. Me. Daiki agreed with a nod, he was himself of course after all. Very well, since it's come to this, I'll just have to defeat you, the little Hyuga declared, grandly. Okay? Daiki replied lamely, raising an eyebrow at her. Feel the might of the Hyuga clan. Hanabi shouted before lunging at him, 2 fingers out on each hand and filled with chakra. She launched into a barrage of blinding fingers strikes, aiming for his tenketsu, and he had to admit, she was pretty damn fast for her age. Faster than he was when he became a genin actually. Not fast enough though. Without even uncrossing his arms, he dodged and weaved between her rapid-fire finger strikes, stepping back every now and then for some space. Finally, he just got bored of that though, and lashed out with both hands, grasping her wrists and yanking her up into the air. So, why are you spying on me, little Hyuga? Daiki asked. You'll never make me talk, she snarled, like a cute little puppy. Hiya, she lashed out with a strong kick at his unprotected side. A dull thump echoed as her kick made impact. And Daiki just stared at her. No really, why are you spying on me? He repeated his question. My strongest kick had no effect? Hanabi went wide-eyed in shock. Well, his ribs throbbed a tiny bit from it, but he took harder hits from his clones, multiple dozens of times a day, so it was easy to ignore. You're pretty good for your age, Hanabi, Daiki chuckled, really good actually, but I'm the best genin in this village, so you'll need to get a lot stronger if you want to beat me. Niji is the strongest genin in the village, she glared cutely at him, before blinking her pupil-less eyes slowly and then going wide-eyed in shock. Wait, how do you know my name? She demanded. You're Hinata's little sister, she talked about you sometimes, Daiki shrugged, not actually lying. Hinata did mention her sister during small talk after they sparred, and no, Niji is the second strongest genin in the village, maybe third actually depending on how a few others go about fighting. I'm the definite strongest, but you already know a bit about how strong I am with how much you've been spying on me the past few days, right? So you knew, she gasped, here you trying to lull me into a false sense of security then and ambush me like you have here? No, I just didn't really care you were spying on me, Daiki shrugged. If I had to guess, this has something to do with Hinata's new attitude. Fine, yes it does. She growled cutely, sister has changed greatly in the last few months and I have deduced that it is because of you. Pretty much, Daiki nodded, not denying his involvement. What's the problem? Hinata getting more confident and using her strength properly was a good thing, wasn't it? Hanabi stopped glaring at him, and a lost look appeared on her face. I do not understand, sister is weak, she cannot even beat me, she said. Even with her new attitude, she has still lost to me, yet her new confidence remains, and when I followed to find out why, I saw her fighting you. She was much stronger than she was against me and much more ferocious. Damn right that girl was ferocious. Seriously, it didn't matter how many times he put her on that nicely plump and shapely round ass of hers, she bounced right back up and came right at him like a lioness fighting for her next meal. But, Daiki could understand the girl's confusion. He remembered vaguely that Hanabi always looked up to her sister, but the weakness in Hinata slowly squashed that as she was promoted to heiress over her and claimed to be her better in every regard by her father and grandfather. It wasn't until after she saw Hinata's resolve, a newly created powerful jutsu of her own and Hinata facing off against pain to save Naruto, that Hanabi realized her sister had always been strong. It's because she's kind, Daiki answered simply. You're her precious little sister after all. Hanabi's eyes slowly widened in realization at his words, but it is Hinata's fate to be weak, she whispered, and it looked almost as if the little girl's entire world had been turned upside down. Like she couldn't understand at all why Hinata was strong now. It was her fate to be weak, Daiki stated firmly, he didn't deny that. The canon Hinata was pathetically weak. The thing about fate, little firecracker, is that there isn't just one path and a single decision can send you down an entirely new road. All I did was give her a little push down a different road than she was traveling before. There was no use denying it really. For one, some kind of destiny shit did exist in this world. It might not be absolute, because he knew for sure he could go kill Naruto right this very moment and the prophecy about him uniting the Bijou would never come to pass. Not that it would actually anyway, because Isopro was with him now, And he didn't plan on letting anybody rip out his bro and stuff him in a nasty-ass looking statue. "How many times are you going to keep calling me that?" Isabu griped. Plus, convincing someone like Niji or even Hanabi here that fate wasn't actually a thing would require a bunch of speeches and some fighting against unwinnable odds and stuff. So, the best thing to do was just take his own spin on things. Just because fate was already written in the stars didn't mean he could take a rubber to it and replace it with a different tale. Multiple paths? Hanabi mumbled, "So, it's not just my fate to lead the Hyuga clan?" Daiki lowered the girl to the ground gently and shrugged. "If you want it to be, you can run right down that road," he told her, "but if you want to go a different path, you can do that too. You can do anything you want if you're strong enough. So fate can be changed if you have enough strength, I see." Hanabi nodded slowly, understanding dawning on her. "Right, now for the big finish. If you're not strong enough, all you have to do is throw yourself fully into the grind until you are strong enough," Daiki confirmed. "When you are, you can accomplish anything you put your mind to," he added, and thrust his right palm up, channeling chakra through his hand. The air rumbled and distorted as he unleashed a powerful shockwave with the force palm jutsu, followed by a second, third, and then more in rapid succession. That's. Hanabi gaped wide-eyed at him, "the 8 trigrams vacuum palm. You can use one of our clan's most advanced techniques and in rapid succession." Daiki paused and blinked. It is quite like that, isn't it?" He mused, before shaking his head. "It's not your clan's technique though. I created this technique of mine not long after I became a genin. In fact, it was the first technique I created." "Pretty cool, he bragged proudly. "I see, I understand now why you claim to be the strongest genin. Not even Niji can use this technique yet," Hanabi said slowly, gazing at him almost in awe. "Hinata-ne-sama followed your teachings, and has become much stronger for it, so strong that even throwing fights against me in front of the entire clan has no effect on her confidence." "Well, kind of. More or less," Daiki shrugged. "Your sister has always been strong and beautiful, she just needed someone to teach her how to use what she had better." Hanabi furrowed her brows at his words. "Then, can you teach me how to use what I have better?" she asked. Daiki froze. He wasn't exactly against it. It would cut into some of his time, but teaching in of itself might be a good new way to progress himself in the grind. Also, Naruto had his own mini-me disciple squad. Konohamaru legit took on and beat one of Pain's paths, full-on clan head Jonin weren't even capable of that. "Maybe," the Tangenin replied, "the question is, what exactly do you want to accomplish? Like, what do you want me to help you with? That was kind of important, right?" "I don't know," Hanabi shrugged. "I like to train and I like getting stronger. Is that not enough?" "No dream, huh?" "No, that's perfectly fine motivation," Daiki totally approved. That his literal reason for the grind as well. He liked getting stronger. Granted, there was the tidbit about stopping the apocalypse and all, but he didn't exactly have a dream or overall super goal like Naruto or shit. "If you want me to train you, that's fine, I'm all for it." Hanabi blinked, before smiling ever so cutely, and bowing politely to him. "Then I'll be in your care, Daiki-sensei." "Daiki-sensei? That just sounds wrong somehow," Daiki shuddered. "Call me Aniki instead," he said, before reaching over to pet her gently on the head. "Okay, Aniki." Hanabi nodded vigorously. She was so cute. Hanabi yelped as his hand moved to her shoulder and he bodily picked her up and hung her over his own shoulder. "What are you doing, Aniki?" she asked. "Let's go get some food and we can talk about what way you want me to train you," he replied with a grin. "What's your favorite food?" Okay." Hanabi wrapped her arms around his neck and hung on as he began walking. "I'm partial to the bananas and milk, and I absolutely disdain Mitsuba." "Milk and bananas, huh?" As expected of a Hyuga, even while eating she was cultivating her bloodline. "Right, first things first," Daiki declared an hour later after filling his belly and getting a good rundown of his new student's thoughts on her abilities. "Before we get down to the training, I need to show off a bit to you." "What do you mean, Aniki?" Hanabi, once again hanging over his shoulder, asked, confused. "Isn't showing off a silly thing to do for a shinobi? Father always said that the ones that need to showboat about their strength do it for validation to feel good about themselves because they have no true belief in their own abilities." That did sound like Hayashi Hyuga, that was for sure. "In a way, he's not wrong," Daiki nodded in agreement, "but this isn't about me showing off to make myself seem cool and stuff. it's about showing you a bit of how strong I am, he explained, walking along the paths between the training grounds. He was not headed towards Training Ground 69 for now though, he had something else to take care of, another destination that would allow him to kill multiple IWA shinobi with one jutsu as the saying went. Damn rock humpers. What do you mean? Hanabi repeated her question. I don't understand the point of you showing off your strength for me. It's about trust, he stated simply, so you can see proof and have faith in me, like, if anything or anyone super strong popped up, you wouldn't need to be afraid cause you know I'd kick their asses and make them my little bitch. You're very crass Aniki, Hanabi noted, but nodded in understanding, but yes, I understand now, thank for you explaining. Not a problem, if you've got something you don't understand, just ask me, I'll do my best to help you out, he flashed her a thumbs up, just make sure you don't let go of me, the place we're going is a little bit dangerous. I will not. Hanabi promised. Their destination was Training Ground 44, or, using its other name, the Forest of Death. He needed to test out the summoning contract he'd been working on for Isabu. Training Ground 44 was the best place to do so, it was filled with massive, powerful beasts after all. The Forest of Death in total was around 10 kilometers long. That totaled out to just over 6 miles. With the Shinkigen at a high enough vantage point, Daiki could easily oversee the entirety of the forest. So as he approached the massive gates barring off the training ground, he picked the perfect spot. He launched himself up through the air with a powerful leap, Hanabi secured on his back with her grip around his shoulders and landed atop a branch sticking out of a gargantuan tree over 1,000 feet tall. The second he landed, an ominously loud chittering resounded through the air and a massive centipede over 100 feet long and thicker than he was tall launched up towards them, pincered mouth aimed directly at him to bite him in half. Aniki. Hanabi's arms tightened around his neck and she froze at the sight of the massive beast. Don't worry, he assured her calmly, and thrust out one hand, channeling a hefty dose of chakra through the seal on his palm, Force Palm Jutsu. The air rippled and distorted as a massive shockwave erupted from his palm and slammed straight into the massive insect's face just as it was a few feet away. Its huge, ugly face erupted in a shower of gore, slimy green blood and innards raining through the air while its corpse topped backwards to slam into the ground below. Daiki easily avoided the nasty green goo, hopping up onto a higher tree branch. See, he grinned at Hanabi, the creatures in this forest are pretty big, but any decently strong genin can handle them one-on-one, he assured. Hanabi blinked. I see, true, it was not faster than me, I could have dodged it if needed, she agreed, though, I lack the striking power that would have been needed to break through such an insect's tough shell. Your jutsu ignored its outer shell entirely for the most part and struck it from the inside. Shockwaves are pretty nifty for that, good catch, Daiki praised the girl, gotta inspire confidence in his student after all, if blunt force and slashing attacks aren't working, shockwave types like your Hyuga vacuum palm and my force palm are great backups. Understood, Hanabi nodded, so then, do you recommend I work on the 8 trigrams vacuum palm over the 8 trigrams 64 palms? You know, your techniques are a mouthful, Daiki noted with a snort, hopping off the tree branch to another and making his way through the forest, idly scanning the place with his eyes, looking for a nice target. It's up to your preference in the end. You can already block Tenketsu, the 64 palms is pretty good, but it's just a faster, more advanced version of what you can already do. The vacuum palm gives you a long range option with some good variety usage and can do damage to tougher opponents that your 64 palms can't. Hanabi hummed, your points are valid, the problem is, the vacuum palm while easier, costs a lot more chakra to use, so is usually put off longer until we Hyuga develop larger chakra capacities. Gotcha, Daiki nodded in understand, that's something I can help you with definitely, I'm a bit of an expert on increasing chakra capacities actually, but enough about that, do you have a favorite type of animal? Not especially, though I suppose I'm fond of cats to a degree, she replied. Cats, alright, that'll work, Daiki grinned, he'd already caught sight of a few. Next question then, lion or tiger? I'm more partial to a tiger, Hanabi answered, why are you asking me this? 'Cause I'm gonna test something out, he replied, if it works out, I'll get you a summon of your own. It wouldn't exactly be a famous summon clan or anything, but it would be useful, especially due to what he found in the contract matrix for the Chameleon clan. Are summons not rather rare? Hanabi asked, confused, perhaps a little befuddled. Yeah, but they're pretty amazing, totally worth getting. I have a contract with the Chameleons, they're awesome, Daiki happily told her. Besides, this will be your own personal summon. After all, if it worked, he couldn't just dump it or something, so he'd give it to his new student. That is a very big tiger, Hanabi noted. It didn't take them very long to find their prey. With his eyes, just sweeping glances over the area would let him see through practically every part of the forest. The sensory input was a bit hard to handle and caused a headache, but Isabu's chakra easily handled any inflammation that appeared in the brain from overworking it like this. As amazing as the Shinkigan was, it wasn't something that could be used so leisurely, it had its own drawbacks. Well, unless you had a bijou. Then you could just laugh in the face of such a thing and dab all over it. God, he loved being a Jinchuriki. Have I mentioned how odd of a human you are? Isabu added. Yes, he had, multiple times. Putting that out of thought for now, Daiki looked down at their target. It was a massive tiger. He estimated it to stand around 70 feet high on all fours, and had a proud burnt orange set of fur that stood out against the backdrop of the forest. The huge beast was currently laying under a pile of rocks fashioned together in crude cave shelter. Its own making, perhaps? Daiki mused. Animals in general in this world were much smarter than the ones from his other life due to possessing chakra. The summoning contract on top of that not only bound the signers together through blood and chakra itself, it also stimulated the chakra itself of the summoned beasts, which allowed for them to gain much higher mental faculties that rivaled or even surpassed humans due to the mental aspect of the chakra. That was the reason why the contract itself was so much harder to create than just a simple summoning seal, and why he was out here in the first place to test out the blank contract he'd made. Alright, now that we've found it, I'll let you get a C for how useful summons are, okay? Daiki grinned at Hanabi. By all means, Hanabi nodded. I am quite curious to see your summons now. Well, make sure you don't pee yourself in fright, Daiki teased, before biting his thumb and then quickly running through hand seals, summoning jutsu. He slammed his hand down. There was a massive puff of smoke, and then from it, the titanic form of Shiromari appeared. The huge tiger leapt to its feet at the boss summon's appearance and snarled at him. It didn't have much effect though, considering it didn't even reach the end of the chameleon's leg in height. Daiki had to give it to the tiger though, it didn't back down even with the massive size difference. Hell, Shiromari was comparable in size to Isabu. With a roar that would probably make a civilian curl up and die on the spot from a heart attack of pure fear, the huge tiger leapt at Shiromari, fangs and claws bared. Just before it made contact though, a humongous serpent-headed tail whipped out blindingly fast and wrapped around the tiger's neck, stopping it in its tracks and lifting it into the air. It thrashed and clawed at the air wildly, but the sheer difference in size and strength couldn't be overcome so easily. Daiki, Shiromari nodded down at him respectfully. I do not sense any powerful enemies in the area. Why have you summoned me? Nothing like that, buddy. Daiki grinned and waved at the girl on his shoulder. This is Hanabi, my new apprentice. I just wanted to show her how amazing summons can be. I see, very well, Shiromari nodded simply. What of this tiger? Shall I kill it? Nah, I needed to test something out. Daiki waved the huge chameleon off, and if it works out well I'm gonna make this guy Hanabi's personal summon beast. Ah, the summoning contract for your turtle friend, understood. Shiromari nodded in understanding, before looking down at Hanabi with great big yellow eyes. A pleasure, student of the Chameleon Clan Summoner. Perhaps you will one day sign our contract as well, he mused lightly, before dipping his head, and then erupting into a puff of smoke and disappeared. The huge tiger, half unconscious from being choked out by Shiromari's huge tail, hit the ground, falling from a good 50 feet in the air, the impact of its huge bulk making the ground shake. So, what did you think? Daiki prompted the girl on his shoulder. Hanabi stared at the spot Shiromari towered over a moment ago, before swallowing. I understand, summons indeed seem very powerful. I do not even know how I would begin to combat such a powerful beast, she answered, coloring her tone, before she directed her gaze down at the huge tiger that was slowly pushing itself to its feet. In contrast, the tiger does not seem nearly as impressive. That's mostly because while it's sentient, it lacks sapience, the wisdom use its sentience and intelligence. Daiki laughed lightly. The summoning contract, if it works, will bind to its chakra and its bloodlines, bestowing that sapience on it, which basically means it'll be smarter and even able to train and develop special abilities like jutsu. Maybe everyone has to start somewhere after all. Besides, most genin would get thrashed by this guy here. It is female actually. Hanabi corrected him. "Ha, well, get thrashed by her then," he amended, then nodded. "Alright, let's do this then." He hopped off the tree, landing in front of the tiger just as she rose up to her full height, shaking off the daze from being choked out by his chameleon buddy. She locked eyes with Daiki, before snarling, "None of that now." He glared right back at it, drawing upon Isabu's chakra, just enough so a yellow ring formed around his jujutsu and his eye whites bled into inky ringed purple. And he unleashed the combined killing intent of himself and Isabu. The giant tiger froze abruptly, its legs trembling beneath it and locking it in place. He had to give it props again for not just collapsing beneath the killing intent of a bijou. With it locked in place, Daiki summoned the contract he created from within the Dimension Force seal, opening it up and laying it down. Then, summoned a kunai to his hand. He tossed it out, burying it into the leg of the huge tiger. With how big it was little more than an insect bite really, but the beast gave a startled roar, breaking out of its terror-filled state. And then with a thought, he summoned the bloodied kunai back to the Dimension Force seal and then back to his hand. He knelt down and layered the blood of the huge tiger through the contract matrix, just as the incredibly large feline predator roared and bounded towards them. "You're a real tough girl, huh?" Daiki praised. She wasn't even thinking of running. Seemingly, she was going to defend her home to her last breath. He could respect that. She leapt through the air and he stood up, forming his fingers into the ox seal. "Seal," he commanded. Chains of interlock sealing arrays erupted from the contract scroll, and just as her huge body soared over it, they shot up and wrapped around her body, holding her in place, then glowed a bright red. They only did so for a few seconds, before the chains of sealing arrays seemed to seep into her body and she dropped to the ground in a daze, staring forward with glassy eyes. Shooting forward, Daiki grabbed the contract, before leaping up into the trees, a grin of success on his face. "It worked!" "Is that it?" Hanabi asked, "And was that Fuinjutsu? You must be really skilled to be able to use such a high-level skill, Aniki." "I am pretty awesome." Daiki proudly agreed. "So, let's have you sign the scroll and I'll teach you the summoning jutsu, okay? It's pretty easy." Okay?" Hanabi agreed, "But, shouldn't you do something about her down there? Don't you need her permission or something?" Not really," Daiki shrugged. "You just need to sign the contract and you can summon her, though you'll have to win her allegiance yourself to get her to fight beside you once you summon her though, otherwise she'll probably attack you, but no big deal." Hanabi pursed her lips and frowned. "Aniki, I'm beginning to believe you lack common sense," she pointed out. Later, Hanabi found herself walking through the halls of her clan compound. The sun was already beginning to set and she found that she was exhausted. Daiki Aniki was a monster. She had never felt so exhausted in her life. After their adventure in what he seemed to fondly call the Forest of Death, he had given her the summoning contract scroll he had created, had her sign it with her blood, taught her the signs for the ninjutsu he used to summon that incredibly massive and powerful-looking beast he called Shiromari, and then forced her to train with him. And then when she couldn't go any longer, he healed her with medical ninjutsu and prompted her to go again. If this is how he typically trains with Hinata-sama, it is no wonder she has improved so vastly. Hanabi thought tiredly, her arms feeling absolutely dumb to the bone while she carried a huge scroll almost as long as she was tall. Truly, Daiki Aniki was a monster and he made the harsh training she went through with her clan seem paltry in comparison. It was no wonder he believed himself to be the most powerful genin in the village. Just as she turned the corner to the hallway where her room was located, she almost bumped into her father who was coming around at the same time. She was so exhausted her very senses were numb. "Ah, Hanabi, I have been looked dash." Her father paused, frowning and looking her over. "You look like you have been put through the ringer, daughter. And that is an awfully big scroll you have there. What have you been up to, I wonder?" "I was meeting the one whom Hinata-sama has been training with lately," Hanabi informed her father. "He is a formidable person and I see now that I need much more training. I asked him to teach me as he has been sister, and he agreed. This scroll is a summoning contract he made for me, to show off his capability as a shinobi and prove his claim at being the strongest genin in the village." For the first time in her life that she could ever remember, Hanabi bore witness to her father gaping stupidly at her, as if she was speaking an alien language and grown a second head. "Created a summoning contract, huh?" Hayashi Hyuga sputtered. Chapter 18. You sure this will work? Daiki asked, standing in front of his pond. The clone he'd left behind yesterday while he went and played with Hanabi had taken the time to finish up the renovations on the pond that Isabu desired. Well, beyond the other inhabitants. Finding some fraud shouldn't be too hard, but he wasn't sure about where to find some koi. Maybe he could ask Fu to summon him some? Yes, it may not be blood, but my chakra is more in tune with my essence, because I am chakra itself given form. Isabu assured. He'd drawn up another summoning contract now that he knew it worked, had imbued it with Isabu's chakra, forming a link. He just wasn't sure if it would work since it wasn't blood. Kurama was forced into a contract with Madara Uchiha, remember? And I know from experience, blood from us will not work. Many have tried to force the issue with myself over the centuries. Do not worry, it will work, the huge turtle Bijou expounded. Well, he was the one with more experience, so Daiki would trust in his words. He drew upon a tiny amount of Isabu's chakra, before focusing and running through a few hand seals, then slammed his hand down on the ground, summoning Jutsu, Isabu, he declared. He'd found in the process, that beyond his main contract, he had to focus on Isabu specifically as well, which was kind of interesting as well and brought so many questions about the mental aspect of things and how it linked those who were connected to the contract. There was a puff of smoke in Daiki's chest, where his seal was located, gave a small thrumming throb, though not an uncomfortable feeling, and then when the smoke cleared, there was a small, tiny-looking Isabu on the ground, barely bigger than his palm. Ah, fresh air, how I dash! Isabu began basking in his newfound freedom, only to yelp as the tiny Bijou found himself snatched up by Daiki. Holy shit, you're so cute, buddy! Daiki exclaimed, grinning massively. Like seriously, he could carry him around on his shoulder like this, then if anyone wanted to fight he could be like, go Isabu, I choose you. Use Bijudama. I am not doing that, the tiny Isabu remarked dryly. Spoil sport. Hey wait, you can still hear my thoughts? Daiki realized and asked. This body is merely an extension of my main one, like the clones you can make, Isabu replied, and I can freely share my consciousness between these bodies I create. Ha! Wait, that was just like one of the abilities of the Rinnegan, at least as far as Nagato went. He couldn't remember if Obito could do it with his paths, but he assumed so considering how coordinated they were. Then again, who knew with that, they were reanimated Edo Tenseis after all. Then again, Kagaya had the Rinnegan herself, or was it the Rinne Sharingan she had? Either way, she had it, so it may have been an ability inherited from her. Quite possibly, Isabu nodded his tiny head in agreement. Now, put me down. Fine, fine. Daiki pouted, doing as told and lowering the tiny Bijou to the ground. Who promptly wasted no time in hopping into the pond and disappearing beneath the water. Well, hopefully he enjoyed it. I should try and look into some barrier seals. Daiki mused. He had managed to learn something vaguely like a barrier seal, but it was more like a perimeter type thing that absorbed raw chakra from jutsu within its specific range. Something he picked up from studying the infinite armor he had on his shoulder. Which reminded him, I should probably convert the chakra I have in this into life force, he mused, looking at it on his shoulder. No, wait, he'd do it come the Chunin exams, give it a little bit more to build up. What to do now though? His clones were training away in Isabu's dimension out of sight, getting those jutsu down through the grind. He supposed that left him physical conditioning to do. Or, I could look into some more loot or upgrading, he thought. There were still many things out there to get his hands on to power up with. He hadn't been able to narrow down the traveling clan with Narugui, the ferret that had part of the Stone of Jello. Maybe it was about time to call in some help. And he had the perfect spy network to do the looking for him actually. He had the pond for a moment, before moving on, making his way around his large shiny new house, and God did he love his epic new pad, and stopped in his wide backyard. Then he ran through some hand seals again, summoning jutsu. He focused quite a decent chunk of his chakra and slammed his hand down on the ground. There was a massive puff of smoke, and from it emerged an incredibly large pink chameleon that towered above him. Oh, Daiki, Toka peered down at him, finally decided to stop relying on those eyes of yours as a crutch and work on your sensing abilities properly? His eye almost twitched. The annoying thing about her insults like this were the fact that she wasn't even trying to insult him, she was just blunt as shit and very matter of fact. Maybe later, Daiki rolled his eyes and replied, I've got a job for you in your clan if you're up for it. A few actually, but two specifically. Oh? Toka hummed with interest and crouched down so she was eye level with him. How odd, despite having the contract for months now, you have yet to summon Aeneas for any important task or to aid you in a proper fight, even when we would have been great aid, such as during your mission to Waterfall. Daiki winced. Sorry, I'll call you guys out more often, he promised. Like now, I have a totally important set of job for you guys. I am listening. Toka nodded once. How good are you guys at gathering intel? He asked. We are the best, of course, Toka proudly replied. Do you need us to gather information on someone then? Pretty much, Daiki nodded. I need you guys to track down a clan for me. They're pretty much a civilian clan and they're constantly on the move. I don't have a name for them, but I know they have an elder called Kahiko and they're traveling with a specific ferret, yellow fur, red eyes. Toka hummed, a challenge at the very least, but we'll find them for you. Good, she was confident in their ability at least. And the other one, she asked, you said there was a pair. Well, that one is easier, but you'll have to head to the land of snow for it, Daiki replied, and I don't know how good you guys are with the cold and all, being reptiles. Toka shrugged her scaly shoulders. A cold land is not ideal, but there are of course members of our clan who have trained with fire chakra to ward off the cold effects, such as myself, she replied. Perfect then, Daiki grinned. I want you guys to steal something for me. It's a piece of chest armor owned by a guy called Dodo. He's the current leader of the land of snow. It's pitch black in color with a bit of blue on it and can absorb chakra. The guy is a shinobi alongside his subordinates, but not very good ones. They rely on this armor of theirs instead of their actual skills. Outside of their armor any jonin could mop them up. Is that all? Toka snorted, such a pitiful target, not a challenge at all unlike the first. I'll think of other challenging jobs for you later then, okay? Daiki snorted, such a proud lizard. No wonder it was the chameleons that were approached by the snakes to try and make a dragon clan. They had the pride for it for sure. Or Toka did at the very least. After Toka bid him goodbye to get started on the job he'd given her and her clan, Daiki decided it was time for the daily grind. His destination, of course, was the ever-epic training ground 69. His home, away from home. Maybe I should put a sign down claiming ownership of the place, he wondered. Could he even do that? Well, he could if he became Hokage, he supposed. Training Ground 69, personal training ground of the Hokage. Ha! Daiki sighed, strolling leisurely along the pathway between the training grounds. The Sandaime hadn't brought the topic up at all, not even hinted at it to his clones that saw the man practically every morning. All the man did was greet him, make small talk, ask how his training was going. It felt like the man was trying to give him space to think things through and not pressure him. But that in of itself was pressuring Daiki and he was doing his best not to think about it. There is no rush. That was what Old Man Third claimed, but he was wrong. Daiki knew that, which was the problem. If there really wasn't a rush, he'd have accepted, because the offer was on the table plain as day, personal instruction from the Sandaime Hokage himself and probably access to the Forbidden Scroll. He could learn all he wanted and then pass the pie to Naruto a few years down the road, or even Kakashi or something and let them become Hokage instead of him, step down for them. But that couldn't happen. Because the Sandaime had a death timer counting down right now and Daiki had no idea if he would be able to stop it. And if he did actually manage to stop it, he would probably have to pull out every damn trick in the book to do so. And if he failed, not only would his status as a Jinchuriki get revealed to pretty much everyone, he might actually be forced to take up the hat instead of Tsunade as the Sandaime's chosen successor. Jiraiya wouldn't accept. Kakashi wouldn't accept. No way in hell would Danzo be allowed, and thus it would come down to either him or Tsunade. He could be fucking Hokage in less than 3 months from now. That was terrifying to think about. It was why he decided to push up his timetable and have the Chameleon clan search out that ferret so he could get his hands on a piece of the Stone of Jelal. And while they were at it, stealing Dodo's armor as well. He had to get his hands on what he could. Because the thing was, he was actually very tempted to accept personal instruction from the legendary professor himself. The amount of jutsu he could get out of the man almost made him salivate. And beyond that, again, the Forbidden Scroll. The Edo Tensei. It could be a viable backup plan. If he failed and died, with the infinite armor, his eyes and enough chakra converted into life force, he could probably revive himself. Hell, Edo Tensei reanimations had pretty much infinite chakra. He could abuse the shit out of that with his eyes and his infinite armor. A failsafe in case he failed to get strong enough to deal with the Akatsuki. Plus beyond that, there were tons of powerful jutsu within that scroll. Hell, if he wasn't wrong, the Hiraishin was in there as well. Daiki, someone calling out his name broke him from his deep thoughts. Looking over his shoulder, Daiki saw that it was a familiar bun-haired girl. Oh, hey Tenten. He waved to her. Seemed she and her team had returned from their little month-long training trip. I was just coming to look for you, she grinned, jogging over to him. How lucky. I was hoping we could train together a little bit. Fine with me, good to see you back, Daiki replied. So, how'd the training trip go? Tenten froze and then grimaced. It went. She trailed off, apparently having trouble finding a word to describe it. That bad, huh? He snorted. Like you wouldn't believe, she sighed, shoulders slumping. We spent most of it doing physical training and sparring. Well, me and Niji at least. Lee spent the entire month trying to get surface walking down. How'd he do? Daiki asked, raising an eyebrow. He was actually quite curious. So, she shrugged. He managed to get it down enough to be usable in a fight, but that's about it. Well, at least there's that. He's getting there, I suppose, Daiki shrugged. How about you? Get the mystical palm down? She sighed again. Not quite. I mean, I've managed to heal a few cuts with it, but it's nowhere close to perfect, she answered. Guy-sensei didn't give me as much time to work on it as I would have liked. He wanted us to be in top physical condition for the Chunin exams over just a single jutsu. Well, Daiki could see where the man was coming from. As useful as the mystical palm jutsu was in God was it useful, it was a utility and support type jutsu. Raw physical ability would be better for the Chunin exams. Tenten clapped her hands together and bowed her head to him. So, please help me out on perfecting the jutsu, the bun-haired girl pleaded. Sure, Daiki shrugged. His usual eye candy was busy today. He wouldn't say no to another, especially one not heavily in love with someone else, but we're getting this done today. I've got my own training to do after all. Her head whipped up and she grinned brightly at him. Aye Daiki-sensei, she chirped happily. Thanks a bunch. She surprised him by wrapping her arms around him and hugging him tightly. Yeah, he smirked, rolling his eyes, though definitely not complaining about having a cute and curvy girl pressed up against him. It helped him focus for now. Again, it was the little things in life. Or, well, not quite so little in Tenten's case. Mystical palm jutsu training. Ah, damn it. Tenten cursed, picking up the dead fish sitting on the ground in front of her and tossing it through the air. Well, it wasn't going well. Daiki, mid-handstand push-up, watched it soar into the sky and disappear over the tree line. Maybe some normal fish alongside the koi, he mused. I just don't get what I'm doing wrong. The girl jumped to her feet and kicked a small rock laying nearby, sending it up through the horizon, following the fish. To be honest, neither did he. As far as he could tell, she had the necessary chakra control. She was able to activate the jutsu and she had no problem maintaining it. Even with his eyes, he couldn't see anything really wrong with her control over the jutsu. It should be working. And she confirmed she was able to heal small cuts as well. Perhaps she has a problem visualizing the technique end? Isabu offered his input. Unlike most other jutsu where you merely shape it, this technique, I've noticed through your usage, has a mental control aspect to it because of the multiple ways it can be used. Maybe. Pushing up with his hands, Daiki flipped into the air and landed on his feet seamlessly, even though he was wearing 8,000 pounds on each limb now. He could probably clap some ninja just by throwing one of his weights at them. What do you think about when using the jutsu? Daiki asked her. Tenten looked at him and shrugged. Nothing much. Well, like I try and visualize it working now, but other than that nothing else. I just use it like any other jutsu. Isabu was spot on the money. Much like you yourself, you tend to miss the trees for the forest, focusing on the final goal rather than the step-by-step process. Isabu added. Hey, he didn't do that. Much. He had to weigh the pros and cons of doing shit anyway, one wrong step and he could get fucked over right proper. Besides, much of the things he'd like to change needed a vast amount of strength to do anything about. Strength he didn't have without Isabu himself backing him up, which wasn't an option right now when he wanted to hide his status until he was strong enough for it not to matter that the Akatsuki would come after him. Yeah, that's your problem, Daiki pointed out to the girl. The mystical palm has a bunch of uses despite only being a single jutsu, like it can heal, it can be used to examine the body itself, it can be used to numb pain. The healing part is actually one of the simpler parts of it. Wait, really? Ten blinked, that's it? That's all I'm missing, she gawked at him. Pretty much I think. Daiki confirmed. No way, she shook her head, then scowled, that can't be it. I've been working on this jutsu for an entire year now, more even. Nearly 2. It can't be that simple. Eesh, she was pissed. Well, he couldn't blame her. Sucks to suck, he snorted, or well, the guy who taught you this jutsu sucks ass at least, now that he thought about it. There was no mention of the visualizing part of things in the scroll he got either, he'd just associated that kind of thing with a lot of fiction so went about that route automatically. That might be an interesting avenue to explore with other jutsu now that he thought about it. You can't be serious. Ten shook her head, but despite her refuting his words, her shoulders slumped in defeat. Well, let's find out if I'm right or not then. Daiki smirked at her, summoning a kunai to his hand and then promptly stabbing it straight through the middle of his palm. What are you doing? Are you crazy? Ten gaped, going wide-eyed in shock. Nah, I'm a badass, he shrugged, ignoring the pain. He was getting good at that actually. Ever since he got his shit absolutely kicked in by that Kunsuian, pain was just weakness leaving the body as it grinded to an all-new level. I'm a badass who currently can't make hand seals though, who will bleed out and die if you don't heal me. No, he wouldn't actually. Hell, no ninja would bleed out and die from something as slight as this. It did spur Ten into action though. She was only a few feet away, but she rushed to him so fast one might have think she had learned to teleport. She grabbed his hand, ripping the kunai out, blood spurting from the wound, and quickly formed a familiar hand seal, green chakra forming around her hands and being directed into the stab through his hand. It took a few minutes, and neither made a sound, her because she was concentrating so much in Daiki because he didn't want to spook her out of her little zone, but finally, the wound began to slowly close. Good thing it was shallow, kind of. And well, Isabu would tack care of the bone. I can't believe you did that, are you stupid? Ten growled at him when she finally finished, sweat matting her forehead. You could have seriously hurt yourself, and what, just to make me take your advice and try it out on the spot? Daiki's smirk had not disappeared, in fact, it just grew bigger, to shit-eating proportions. Hey, I was right though wasn't I, he smugly pointed out. Besides, have you thought that maybe I just wanted to hold hands with a cute girl? Ten blinked in surprise at his words, before looking down at their hands, specifically, her cupped ever so gently around his own. Her cheeks flushed, and she quickly let go of him and stood back. You really are just an idiot, aren't you? She shook her head. With those weights and crazy physical conditioning you do, you're totally cut from the same cloth as Guy-sensei and Lee. Hey, now that's just insulting, Daiki huffed, crossing his arms. I'm my own brand of idiot actually. An awesome, ultra-powerful, and epically sexy idiot, I'll have you know. No lie there. He was built like a god, with muscles carved from marble, and a super-ultra-epic Manda 2.0 that even Manda himself would recoil in fear from and bow down before. Ten couldn't help herself, erupting into a slew of giggles. You're so full of yourself, she said, before sighing and smiling gratefully at him. But, thank you, I've finally got this jutsu down thanks to you. No biggie, he shrugged, though he was curious. Why have you been so determined to learn this? All the time you put into this could have been used on something else instead when you saw you weren't getting anywhere. Ten sighed. It's been my dream since I was little to be like Tsunade-sama, she revealed, smiling a little melancholy smile his way. I want to be a legendary kunoichi like her, but I've never been able to even come close to the path she went down. I don't have a super lineage or superhuman strength. I absolutely suck at medical ninjutsu, as you can tell. I blew getting a summoning contract because I was too absorbed in the thought of a legendary one like the slugs. She shook her head and then met his eyes. I gave up on ever being like her, but I wanted to at least get this jutsu down at the very least. It was like a test for myself, you know? I mean, you don't need to be like her to be a legendary kunoichi, or be stronger than her, Daiki pointed out with a shrug. Tsunade was kind of a low bar personally for him considering how strong he wanted to get. Besides, there's other summoning contracts out there and the slugs aren't even all that powerful and most of her superhuman strength comes from a jutsu of her creation. Hindsight and all that, right? Tenten rubbed the back of her head sheepishly. Honestly, I've got my own path now. Weapons and summoning are my things now, though I wish I realized that before I made a fool of myself in front of the tortoise summons and... She trailed off, cheeks flushing. And? Daiki raised an eyebrow. She looked embarrassed now. Was it something juicy? And before I tried gambling to be like her, she admitted self-consciously, I kept getting kicked out of gambling halls, and one guy even said I'd never be like Tsunade because she had legendary huge boobs and I don't. Daiki couldn't help it, he burst out laughing. He didn't remember anything like that happening. Oh come on. Tenten whined, it's not that funny. Kinda is, Daiki refuted, before getting his laughter under control. Either way, you're doing pretty fine now and you've got nothing to be ashamed about on that front. She paused and furrowed her brows. What do you mean? She asked, confused. Daiki grinned and shrugged, before gesturing to her with a wave of his hands. You've got a pretty big set of tits on you, nice ones too, he pointed out and unashamedly looked down at said pretty big tits. You're pretty damn hot in general, probably one of if not the hottest girl in our age group in the village. She was definitely up there for sure. For a moment, Tenten just gaped at his upfront compliment, cheeks blazing red, before she sighed and palmed her forehead. Don't just say that to a girl, don't you have any delicacy you idiot, she groaned. What's that, can you eat it? His grin got bigger. She snorted, not cute Daiki, not cute at all, Tenten retorted, before sighing and smiling at him. Still, thanks for the compliment I guess, you're not so bad looking yourself. Babe, I'm hotter than the sun, Daiki refuted with a shrug. One only had to look at his glorious muscles to understand that, so, now that you've got that down, how about we go grab a bite to eat? Are you inviting me out on a date? Tenten raised an eyebrow at him. Yup, he nodded. Okay. Tenten nodded, accepting his offer. Good shit, his grin returned and he held his arm out for her. It's customary where I'm from for a girl to hold on to the guy on a date. Nice try, but no, she replied dryly, now that I know how big of a pervert you are, I'm gonna be keeping my eye on you buddy. Well, couldn't blame a guy for trying. Hours later, after the sun had set, Daiki returned home, a wide grin on his face. He'd had a great-ass fun time with Tenten. After eating, she'd actually shown him about some places he didn't know of, like an arcade. He didn't know Konoha had an arcade. The games weren't electrical and stuff like from his other life beyond a few, and were mostly things like accuracy toss games for winning prizes, but there were a few interesting things like sparring rings where a young shinobi and kunoichi could pick fights and spar with each other for fun. Honestly, it was a good time and Tenten was good company, she bounced off him pretty well. His personality, not his dick mind you, though he'd like that too. She was apparently so used to playing the straight man or rather woman, with Rock Lee and Guy, that his upfront attitude apparently didn't bother her all that much. That and he knew she got a bit of a kick out of him checking her out and complimenting her. He didn't need to use his eyes to read her mind for that either. The little half smiles she tried to hide from him were enough proof of that. He paused by the pond and eyed it, but he couldn't see shit in there without shifting his vision. How's your day been? He asked internally. Quite enjoyable thank you. Isabu replied. Did anybody check the place out while I was out? He asked. No, none that I could sense at least. Isabu informed. Good enough for him. Isabu was pretty skilled when it came to noting the presence of others, even Ambu had trouble hiding from him. He was a smart and skilled turtle bro. Shrugging, Daiki continued on making his way into the house. He was heading straight for his bedroom for now. He was about to dispel his clones for the day, so none of them popped during the night and woke him up. He paused as he entered the bedroom though and stared. There, in the middle of his bed, was a familiar piece of black chest armor, with a note on top. Instinctually he walked over and picked up the note, reading it. That was too easy Daiki, find something more challenging to steal next time. Toka. Well that was fucking fast. Daiki gaped. Man, chameleons were so fucking awesome. Chapter 19. The Hokage bunker was abuzz with noise. Usually a quiet place, it was a large room located under the Hokage tower itself, 50 feet underground, and with only the Hokage themselves able to enter and access the room. But that was not so today. Today, the room was filled to the absolute brim. Many a top jonin were gathered alongside dozens of active chunin. Elite jonin, special jonin, clan heads, advisors, and all. Despite how many of them that had gathered though, there was a large, respectful distance between the gathered ninja and where the Hokage sat behind a desk, comfortably resting on an incredibly large and soft throne-like chair. His advisors and former teammates flanked him from each side. Hamura Mitakudo, an old, stern-faced man with rectangular spectacles, and Kohara Utatane, an old bun-haired woman with just as stern a face as her glasses-wearing comrade. As you all know, it is that time of the year again. Sarutobi spoke up, his voice immediately halting any voices from the gathered ninja and allowing his words to carry over the large room easily. The chunin exams are once again upon us, and it is now time to determine who of our genin will be taking part in the exams. He let his words hang in the air a bit, looking through the gathered ninja slowly before nodding. First, I think we'll hear from those teaching the newest squads of genin, the Sandaime continued, his eyes lingering on three specifically of the gathering. Kakashi, Asuma, Kurenai, your thoughts? At his prompting, the three names stepped forward out of the crowd of ninja, a beautiful dark-haired woman with striking red eyes and a scruffy bearded jonin with an unlit cigarette hanging from his mouth. Kakashi was the first one to speak, looking up from his ever-present book. I, Kakashi Hatake, leader of Team 7, nominate Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, and Naruto Uzumaki to take part in the chunin exams, he stated clearly and loudly. For a second, there was silence, before a chorus of shocked exclamations and mutters resounded from behind him. A rookie team, is he crazy? Oh come on Kakashi. Are you kidding? Sasuke Uchiha I can see, but that Uzumaki brat? He's useless. And so on and so forth. Many were trying to get on Kakashi's case about his bold nomination, but he ignored them boldly. Things only became more heated when Asuma and Kurenai nominated their own rookie genin teams to take part in the exams. Especially Kurenai, being only a recently promoted jonin, having only been one for a few months before becoming a squad leader and sensei. All of them, huh? Sarutobi mused with a light grin, how rare a few genin teams after all were talented enough to be nominated for the chunin exams within their first 6 months of being proper ninja and leaving the academy behind. Hold on a second, a scar-faced chunin spoke up. Irika stormed his way to the front and glared at the three senseis of the nominated rookie genin teams. You three can't be serious. The chunin and academy teacher glared at them for a moment before turning and bowing to the Hokage. I'm sorry for speaking out of turn Hokage-sama, but please allow me to say my piece. He apologized. The Hokage raised an eyebrow, but that was all, before merely waving his hand and gesturing for the man to say his piece. Irika nodded, before turning to the three. I may be speaking out of line, but I know these kids, I taught them for years, it's only been 6 months, they're not ready, he stated firmly. They are talented for sure, each and every one of them in their own way, but the chunin exams is on another level. Are you trying to get these kids crushed? I became a chunin when I was 7 years younger than Naruto. Kakashi pointed out with a shrug. Irika paused, registering his words, before his glare became lethal. This isn't just about Naruto, he spat. Not a single one of them are ready, not even Sasuke, they need more experience. A lot can change in 6 months, Kurenai refuted him. Hinata for instance has changed massively in the last few months and grown in leaps and bounds. She may very well be the strongest of her graduating class now. Kakashi snorted. Oh, you disagree? Kurenai challenged him. I'm actually in a position to comment because I taught these kids some at the academy myself before I became a jonin. You may think Sasuke is the strongest, but I'm well aware of his talent, and I was already a chunin myself at their age, yet, I believe I would not be able to defeat Hinata as I was at her age. Hayashi Hyuga, standing alongside his few clan heads, perked up at the mention of his daughter, his lips for a brief moment, twitching upwards, before being hidden by an impassive frown a split second later. No actually, while Sasuke has definitely come a long way himself and grown by leaps and bounds, I already know who the strongest genin is in the village, taking every single one of them into account, Kakashi shrugged, and it definitely isn't the cute little Hyuga heiress, and I wouldn't be bragging so much about her strength, it isn't exactly your doing. Kurenai's mouth dropped at his casual dismissal of her efforts as a sensei, but before she could fire back, Asuma stepped between them. Now guys, let's calm down, no need to get all fired up. The heir of the Sarutobi laughed lightly. I think my kids are pretty talented as well, which is why I'm recommending them. Kakashi shrugged uncaringly, while Kurenai huffed and crossed her arms. Probably just going to make a stupid joke about Naruto being the best or something anyway, despite how untalented he is, she muttered. Kakashi's eyes narrowed ever so slightly and Irika outright glared at the woman, opening his mouth to reply. Only for a cough to interrupt them. Well, I suppose this is as good a time as any then. The Sandaime drew the attention back to him, but now that Kakashi has brought the subject up, I will be personally pushing forth a single genin to take part in the exams. All eyes in the room whipped to him. Hiruzen? Koharu asked, looking at him oddly. With all eyes on him, Hiruzen merely placed his hand under his desk, and the wall behind him slid apart to reveal a large screen embedded within the wall. A second later, it lit up, displaying the ninja registration and information page of a broad-shouldered, tan-skinned, and crimson-red-eyed teenager. Daiki! Irika went absolutely wide-eyed. Unnoticed by many, Hayashi straightened up and paid special attention at the mention of the boy's name. Kakashi mentioned him offhand, but this is Daiki Uriai, a genin I specifically have my eye on, Hiruzen explained to the gathered ninja. Currently, he has completed 64 D-rank missions, 3 C-rank missions, 1 B-rank mission and 1 S-rank mission. Currently a member of the Genin Corps, he graduated 6 months ago and failed the exam placed by his Jonin sensei of the time. Since then, he has trained rigorously and has personally killed no less than 5 Jonin, one a former member of the 7 swordsmen of the mist and beyond. My dear friend Kosuke has the highest kill count of any genin in the village, with over 100 confirmed kills to his name. For a moment, there was absolute silence, before the gathered ninja once again broke into a cacophony of noise. 5 Jonin. Forget that, a member of the 7 swordsmen, as a rookie genin? Am I hearing this right? He's gotta be kidding, right? And what's with that absurd number of D ranks? No, ignoring all that, what's a kid who accomplished all this and has the eye of the Hokage himself doing in the Corps? What absolute idiot failed this kid? Danma Shiranui near the back of the room winced, ducking his head out of view of any scanning the room. Daiki? Kurenai frowned. I don't remember him standing out much. He was middle of the pack at best within the academy. Are you sure, Hokage-sama? You really shouldn't talk, Kurenai. You mainly taught genjutsu classes and were only at the academy for a couple of months. Irika cut in. Daiki was one of the most talented of the class, rivaled only by Sasuke Uchiha. The only reason he was ranked much lower was because he pursued every shinobi art at once. Taijutsu, ninjutsu, genjutsu, bokijutsu, everything taught at the academy, he pursued instead of focusing on one or two like most others. I specifically noted in his examination papers that should he find a focus, he would no doubt be the best of his graduating class by far, surpassing even Sasuke. Kid, did you one better? Kakashi shrugged. He just trained even harder. The kid's a training maniac that puts guy to shame, trains from dawn till dusk until complete exhaustion, every single day. Indeed, the Sandaime nodded in agreement. Young Daiki-kun is a splendid shinobi. Physically fast and strong enough to fight a taijutsu specialist jonin, ninjutsu capability that few can match, a massive chakra capacity, a near expert in fuinjutsu, a very special pair of genjutsu to his name and even capable of using elemental jutsu from every element with a variety of B and A rank jutsu under his belt. Nobody said a thing in response, too busy digesting what was said, and none had the bravery to question the Hokage's decision. Shock, though, was the most prevalent feeling throughout the room. None felt more so than Irika at the progress his former student had made. Well, none that is, but Kakashi. By the way, Kurenai, he's the one you can thank for the Hyuga Era's change in attitude, Kakashi helpfully informed with a wide-eye smile. He usually trains at Training Ground 69 if you want to go thank him for doing your job for you. Kurenai's fingers flexed, hands balling into fists, but she held her tongue instead of retorting to Kakashi's baiting. Her eyes narrowed into an angry glare upon his form though. From there, things proceeded, with the rest of the senseis speaking up and nominating or declining their team's entry into the exam. None spoke about Daiki Uriai any longer, despite the burning question many of them all shared. Why was he being allowed to participate without a team? But none had the gall to question the Hokage's decision. Things only really perked up at all again when Irika spoke up and pleaded with the Hokage for the chance to test the rookie genin teams, and would wholeheartedly agree with the decisions made by the rookie team senseis, if they passed his test. The Hokage left the decision up to the senseis themselves, Kakashi and Asuma agreeing without a fuss. Kurenai on the other hand. "I'm all for it, I have faith in Team 8, she declared, but then looked to the Hokage and bowed her head. "On that note, Hokage-sama, I request the permission to test Daiki Yurei myself. I wish to confirm the skills you speak so highly of," she asked of him. The Sandaime raised an eyebrow at her, but merely nodded. "Very well, I give you permission to do so," he agreed. "I should warn you though, not to take him lightly," he informed her, narrowing her eyes and pinning her in place with the seriousness of his gaze. "Thank you, Hokage-sama." Kurenai bowed her head, ignoring the eyes her request had drawn to her. Kurenai knew she was being petty. It should be beneath her, as a jonin, to get so riled up over a genin. Especially when he wasn't even the one that instigated her bad mood in the first place. It was Kakashi. But then, Kakashi had a habit of riling up everyone and anyone, and he had a grand old time doing it for the most part. But it was mainly because it was Kakashi that she got riled up so much in the first place. The legendary copy ninja, Kakashi of the Sharingan, the pride and joy of the Yondaime Hokage, whispered about on the streets as the one who would become Hokage when the Sandaime stepped down once again, living up to his sensei's legacy. It irked her just thinking about him in that regard. But then, he irked a lot of people with his reputation. She had only become a jonin less than a year ago. Kakashi had been one since he was 13 months before she even hit Chunin. Being in his generation, constantly in his shadow, not even considered second best compared to him, it grated sometimes, especially when he acted as smug as he did. And he could be a right dick about things and knew exactly how to press on a sore spot. After the biggest failing in her career and entire life really, just when she thought she could finally put it past her, that Hinata's positive changes washed that failure away. Kakashi just had to snatch it away from her. Kurenai bit her lip, eyes narrowing into a glare as she stared down at her target. She was currently nestled within the branches and foliage of a tree, within the Uchiha clan district. It was only due to the Hokage himself graciously telling her of where the boy lived, that she found him, otherwise she would have had to wait, probably until the next morning, when he made his way back to the training ground Kakashi told her of. As it was, she'd been here for an hour now, watching Daiki Yurei. She had to admit, he had endurance in spades. He'd been training outside the back of his home for an hour straight, and again she had to admit, he was well built. The teen was shirtless, his face and torso covered in a shiny layering of sweat, but not once had he faltered, despite the fact he seemed to be wearing weights just like Guy usually did in his training. Good endurance maybe, but his sensing skills clearly need a lot of work, she noted critically. He hadn't noticed her at all. Her team would have noticed her long before now. True, her team were a tracking team built for that kind of aspect of ninja life, but, considering the praise this boy had thrown about over him, "You can come out now," his voice broke her from her thoughts, and Kurenai gave a start, when she realized, he was staring right at her, as if he could see her through where she'd completely hidden her body. Her eyes widened. "Has he known I'd been here the whole time?" she gaped. Was he just letting her spy on him then and didn't care? Why speak up now though? Unless he was done with his training or something? Shaking her head, Kurenai focused herself and scratched her previous thoughts. Clearly his sensing abilities were top-notch. Doing as he said, she revealed herself, leaping from the tree to land a few feet away from him. The boy, the very broad-shouldered boy she mentally corrected, raised an eyebrow at her and looked almost confused. "Kurenai-sensei," he at least recognized her. "What are you doing here?" he asked, confused, though his confusion didn't stop his eyes from straying over his body, like a typical teenager, and briefly ogling at her body. He left the question of why she was spying on him unasked though. Kurenai crossed her arms and smiled at the boy. "Good that you found me. I suppose your sensing skills are on point." She relayed her thoughts from before to him. "How about your intelligence? Can you guess why I'm here, Daiki-san?" A test. His second eyebrow joined the first, before he snorted and crossed his arms as well and smirked at her, a cocky smirk that looked right at home on his face. "Then this isn't about Hinata, so, the Chunin exams?" She couldn't say why she wasn't surprised at all at the fact someone spoken of in such regard by Kakashi wore a cocky smirk so naturally. She ignored the mention of Hinata. "You catch on fast," she praised lightly. "Yes. To make things simple, you have been recommended for the Chunin exams. but many including myself are a little skeptical of a rookie genin like yourself being able to handle the exams, so I've been sent here to test your capability. For a moment, he just stared at her, before huffing in apparent amusement. Skeptical, huh? He mused. I bet you weren't skeptical when you recommended your own team for the exams. Her eyes widened. How did you dash? I didn't, but you just told me. Not really good at keeping a tight lip on things, huh, Kurenai-sensei? The boy taunted her. A genin just taunted her, a jonin. Honestly, I don't really see what business it is of yours, especially since I know for a fact the Hokage wouldn't prompt this. Old Man Third already offered me a promotion to Chunin. I'm only taking this exam because he asked me to. Unlike your team, my promotion is a foregone conclusion. Kurenai gaped at the boy. He was so arrogant in his ability. He was much more blunt about it and outspoken, but he really did remind her of Kakashi right now, right down to the looking down on her team as being weaker than him. This was the boy that changed Hinata? How? Honestly, she didn't want to imagine what kind of arrogant browbeating he gave her if this was how he acted to a superior. Forget being petty, she would enjoy knocking this kid down a peg. Regardless, I'm here now in my capacity as a jonin to test your worthiness to enter the Chunin exams. She narrowed her eyes at him. How about no? Daiki snorted. I was humoring you before, but honestly, what gives you the right to judge me? I'll pass and just go see the Hokage. I get absolutely nothing out of humoring you. What? Such self-assuredness in his position. What genin acted like this with a jonin and seemed to think they were the ones with the high ground? She really wanted to plant his face in the dirt. What do you want out of this then? Kurenai found herself asking, her arms tightening under her bust and pushing her chest up inadvertently. His eyes flickered to her cleavage, before he shrugged. There's nothing you have that I want, he said and dismissed her with a wave of his hand, turning to walk away and head into his home. Dismissing a jonin as if beneath him. This kid. What if I get naked then if you beat me? Her mouth moved before her brain and she offered. He hadn't been able to hide his interest in her body at least. Her brain caught up and agreed with her actions. It wasn't like a genin could beat her anyway. It was impressive he'd been on an S-class mission, but she'd been on multiple by time she was his age. Just because he was on such a mission, didn't mean he contributed much. Daiki froze, before turning to her with a wide grin. Well, you spied on me half naked for an hour, I guess it's only fair if I get to see you naked as well. He accepted, seemingly believing his victory was assured. Kurenai winced, a flash of guilt assaulting her as she processed his words. She had been spying on a boy half her age. That wasn't a good look for her, was it? Instigating a fight with him as well just because of how cocky he was. So petty of. Her eyes widened as he blurred and was suddenly in front of her, the weights on his arms and legs gone almost instantly and his fist lashing out at her face. Fast. So fast, faster than a genin had any right to be. His attack was so sudden and fast, Kurenai barely had time to react and could only get her hands up in a crossblock and backpedal. She hadn't expected him to attack instantly upon accepting. Just as his fist made impact with her arms and they throbbed with pain, his palm opened up and suddenly a shock wave of force barreled into her as the force of his blow lifted her bodily into the air. She found herself flying backwards through the air, but ignoring it, she quickly ran through hand seals, demonic illusion, tree-binding death. She resorted to one of her most powerful genjutsu on instinct as he powered rapidly after her with a shunshin. Only he didn't stop. She felt the chakra of her contact make contact, and nothing. He didn't even blink. His shunshin enhanced speed made it so he was on her before she even hit the ground. On instinct, she grabbed a handful of kunai and launched them at him point blank. She'd take a hit, but he wouldn't be able to avoid them from this close range. Only they flew right through him as if he were a mirage and before her away, the Daiki charging her faded away. Clone, she gaped. No, that was different from. Just then, an arm wrapped around her throat, and another around her stomach pinning her arms and dragged her down. And dead if you were an enemy. Daiki's voice rumbled in her ear. The boy's head was peeking just over her shoulder, since she was a few inches taller than him, his muscular arms pinning her against his chest and keeping her from moving. How? Kurenai could merely ask after floundering for a few moments trying to think. That clone was an overworld genjutsu and genjutsu itself doesn't work on me, Daiki explained. Don't feel too bad about it, Kurenai-sensei, I'm really just your worst possible matchup. Despite the situation, Kurenai couldn't help but snort, don't feel too bad? I just got beaten in less than 10 seconds by a genin, she replied. Genjutsu not working on you isn't an excuse, you overwhelmed me with your speed, strength, that shockwave that hit me, switching with the clone without me even noticing and getting behind me. Well, there was nothing for it, the Hokage wasn't downplaying the boy at all. You're definitely capable of taking the Chunin exams, as you said, she admitted. You win, she conceded. And my prize? The young teen asked, and she could see him grinning excitedly in her peripheral vision. She huffed, and again despite the situation, she couldn't help but smirk in amusement. I'm a woman of my word, why don't we go outside out of view and I'll do as I promised, she replied. She hadn't even imagined losing to him, never mind so thoroughly. Really, he earned it. Alright then, come on. He unwound his arms from around her, but not before taking a quick squeeze of her backside as he pulled back. She jumped a little, before giving him a narrowed-eyed glance and turning around to look him in the eye. I never said you could touch. Kurenai reprimanded. And you never said I couldn't, the boy unashamedly grinned at her, and eagerly grabbed her by the wrist and pulled her alongside with him. Her stomach twisted with a bit of heat, she always did like a guy who took charge. He led her into the large home and through a long sweeping and tastefully, if basically decorated hallways. Since it was basically his reward and to make up for how pushy she was now that she'd cooled down, she let him take the lead, and examined his house. What's a kid, an orphan even, doing with a place like this? She couldn't help but be a little gobsmacked at his home. It was an expensive clan house, no way a genin should be able to afford it, hell she couldn't. Well, Hokage-sama did claim he killed a member of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist. Kurenai remembered, she'd thought before he'd just been on a mission with some jonin, but no, perhaps he had killed the missing ninja himself and claimed the bounty? A second later, he pulled her into a living room, and it was quite the place. Simple, with little decoration, a long gray couch, 2 armchairs, a table in the middle and a large television hung on the wall and a large fireplace. While the flooring itself was wooden, there was a large and comfortably looking shaggy white fur rug in front of the fireplace. Daiki separated from her as he closed the door behind them and turned to her, grin still splitting his face. Well, he prompted her. Well what, she smirked back, cocking her hip to the side. You're going to have to tell me what you want, she teased. She may as well get some fun out of this. Is that right? The kid was all balls, she had to admit that. He didn't seem nervous in the least. Well, it wasn't unheard of for genin his age to make a beeline for brothels. She knew her on-again off-again boyfriend Asuma did so himself at around his age, alongside the likes of Ganma and Hei-8. He reached out and grasped her by the wrist, and Kurenai let him tug her over to the center of the living room, in front of the couch. Get that dress off, he outright ordered her. If that's what you want, she purred, giving the boy a wink and sauntering forward a few steps, hips swinging as she reached down and grasped her bandage-like dress at the junction at her thighs and then in one smooth motion pulled it up over her head, leaving her entirely naked beyond her sandals and black thong. Well, what do you think of your prize then? Kurenai asked, giving the young teen her most bewitching smile over her shoulder as she kneeled on his couch and bared her large, round ass to him. He boldly stepped forward and his hand came out, swatting her across the ass cheek. She gasped at his boldness, then her eyes went wide as he reached around her, his palm filling with one of her large breasts, and she had to stop from moaning as his fingers found her rosy nipple and pinched lightly. Amazing, what an amazing ass, but the deal was fully naked, wasn't it? His voice was a demanding growl in her ear. Shit, and these tits too, fucking huge. No wonder you're Hinata's sensei. His other hand came around and grabbed her by her other breast and he greedily began groping and squeezing her tits. What do you dash? Kurenai began at the mention of her student, briefly cut off by her voice mewling. A small crackle fizzled from his fingers and buzzed over her nipples just as he gave both a small pinch and pull, a short burst of tingling pleasure shooting down her spine. Man, she gasped out. Was that lightning manipulation? She could feel her thong dampen. This kid was something else. Using his ninjutsu training on her like that without even asking. What a beast, she groaned inwardly, the heat in her belly becoming an inferno. She's into Naruto, Daiki grunted, his hands coming back to grasp her large breasts fully after letting go of her nipples and used his grip on her tits to pull her back into his chest. She took my advice and got hot as shit to snatch him up. Do you know how much blue balls I've worked up with her dancing around now? But I'm not gonna take advantage of her even though I know I could. And just as I said, you make a fine fucking sensei for her, you're both stacked and hot as all fuck. So it was him that helped Hinata. Kakashi was right then. It was bitterly annoying for a moment, before being replaced with gratitude. She loved that girl like a little sister and it did her the world of good. The fact he was good enough to not take advantage of her and help her pursue the one she wanted, made her want to thank the boy. She supposed she could ease up some of that pressure for him, for one night. I suppose we make a good pair then, me and her, Kurenai purred throatily, and arched her back into him, grinding her ass against his crotch and wasn't at all surprised to feel something hard and throbbing press into her in response. Why don't I thank you properly in her place then? She looked over her shoulder at him once again with a smoldering gaze. Her question made him pause in his groping of her. You serious? He asked, letting go and stepping back. She was. I haven't been late in months, she mentally griped, and so smirked at the boy challengingly. What, where's all that confidence from before? She taunted. Daiki stared at her for a moment in surprise, before grinning massively, eyes lighting up with lust, and touched a palm to his pants, and suddenly, they were just gone, leaving him entirely bare from the waist down, his hand going to the base of his manhood and stroking it. No take-backs then when I'm fucking you, silly, he threatened. Lemon scene happened. Hey Kurenai-sensei, wake up, a light slapping on her cheek drew Kurenai from her slumber. She groaned, eyes bleary. Where was she? Looking around with hazy eyes, she noticed she was in an unfamiliar large bed, in a sparsely decorated room. A light slap on her cheek made her look to the side, and take in the form of a young, muscular teenager, naked as the day he was born and an absolutely huge cock standing up like a tower. Her eyes widened and everything came rushing back. Her getting pissed off and petty because of Kakashi, taking it out on a genin, the bet she made with him clobbering her and then taking her as his prize and fucking her. And what a fucking it had been, rough, fast-paced and with little mercy involved. Daiki had his complete way with her and she allowed it. 4 hours on end. No matter how many times he came, he didn't go down. It was the most wild, intense fucking of her life. Kurenai swallowed heavily before pushing herself up and trying to stand, her legs feeling like jelly, her large breasts swinging lewdly beneath her under the gaze of the genin who, as he promised, fucked her absolutely silly. Even now her cunt still felt full. What time is it? She asked blearily. Morning, time for me to get back to the grind, so I figured I'd wake you up. Daiki shrugged, unbothered by either of their nakedness or his raging towering erection. I have to go, I need to get ready to meet my team. She swallowed heavily and tore her eyes away from his cock, lest she be tempted. God, he was an animal that just could not be satiated. This can't happen again, she decided. She couldn't have something like this getting around to her genin team, or worse, Kakashi. The smug looks he'd give her would drive her mad. Once I leave here, we're done, and don't tell anybody about this, she told him. On shaky legs, she looked around the room for her clothes, but just as she stepped past him, his hand grabbed her by the hair. Fair enough, once we leave, this is the end of this. I can't have you getting in the way of my grind anyway, the teen agreed, then manhandled her to her knees and sat down on the bed before her, his cock bobbing almost menacingly before her eyes. Now take care of this. Kurenai swallowed before glaring up at him from between his legs. What did I just say? You've not left yet, as far as I'm concerned, you're still my bitch that I made squeal all through the night. He grinned savagely at her, then suddenly cocked his head to the side and his grin widened. In fact, I quite like hearing you squeal, such a sexy sound. With how exhausted and numb her body was, Kurenai only had time for her eyes to widen, before he grasped her under the armpits and lifted her up into the air as if she were a feather and then pulled her down and sheathed his huge cock into her in one smooth motion. Oh fuck! Kurenai screamed, pleasuring ripping through her body. On instinct her arms and legs wrapped around his body, squashing her big round breasts into the teen's chest, while his hands dropped down to grasp her by the ass cheeks and begin to savagely bounce her up and down on his cock like his own personal pleasure toy. Chapter 20. And so, it begins. Standing before the entrance to the academy, Daiki had his arms crossed as he leaned against a familiar tree, right next to a very, very important swing set. Many had already entered, dozens of teams from all different villages, some people he recognized, others he did not. He wasn't alone either, many teams were chilling outside the building, the anxiousness from them palpable. Disappointingly, the vast majority of the ones hesitating to enter were from the Leaf Village. Many had their eyes on him, eyeing him curiously, both because of his relaxed state and because he was alone, no doubt. They probably thought he didn't notice their attention either, since he had his eyes closed, coolly. Too bad for them, his eyes could see through his eyelids should he so desire. Well that, and because he just randomly spoke a second ago. Some of them seemed freaked out by his statement. "What are you doing?" Isabu questioned, sounding lost. "What do you mean?" And so it begins. "I'm setting the mood," Daiki replied, rolling his closed eyes. "You know, you're incredibly pretentious sometimes." Isabu sighed. "I know you think you're being cool and mysterious, but you're really not." "To you maybe," Daiki gave an internal shrug, "not an external just to be exact. See, I've been thinking, but there's nothing saying this new variation of this world isn't being broadcasted in another world right now, and while it will probably still follow Naruto, other characters will get some spotlight, and I've already set my character path. Specifically, after Naruto's arc in Wave alongside Sasuke, where they really became true shinobi for the first time and saw how big the world really was, Daiki himself came barging in, crushed Sasuke, the main character's big rival, and was all epic, handsome, powerful, handsome, mysterious and handsome. He basically cemented himself as that badass guy that the main character and his rival strove to surpass. The type of guy that got his own side series or show that ran parallel to the main one, and was generally liked even more. "You're an idiot. You've put far too much thought into this and you said handsome 3 times. Isabu deadpanned. "But you haven't said I'm wrong," Daiki smugly pointed out, "and he was just that handsome." "It is highly unlikely, but not impossible as your own situation proves," Isabu replied, heaving a sigh. "You have been much more full of yourself the last few days, ever since you rutted with that jonin," the bijou pointed out. Daiki's only response was a smirk. He had not at all expected to lose his virginity a few days ago, and he definitely hadn't imagined Kurenai Yuhi would be the first woman he ever had sex with. "Well," he said sex, but honestly they just fucked like animals, no lovemaking involved. To be fair, she came around acting all haughty and arrogant, thinking she had the right to test him when as far as he knew nobody else was getting tested, and in the grand scheme of things, she was utter fodder, her only redeeming trait being her body really. Honestly, he remembered her being quite bitchy in the original timeline as well, looking down on Naruto and the like. And he'd never really been a big fan of her. Then she put herself up as the prize and well, the rest was history. Who knew Kurenai was actually a huge slut? And a size queen at that. She couldn't control herself at all when he summoned his mighty serpent King Manda. Sage mode when she stripped down and wiggled that sweet ass of hers at him. Honestly, it was an amazing night. Not only had he got to have his way with a beautiful older woman, he got the chance to experiment with her body, grind out his skills as a lover and in the process, discovered something amazing. Something he'd been hesitant to experiment with before until doing it on instinct with Kurenai. Manipulating the nerve system with lightning chakra. He'd managed to figure out how to trigger pleasure in the nerves through his lightning chakra with her. He'd touched upon one of the main techniques he wanted to master above all others with her. Now, he just needed to go down the path of learning to manipulate his nerve system with it, to heighten his overall speed, reaction time, and reflexes. He was so glad he hadn't totally lost himself in lust for a sweet round ass, fat pair of tits and lovely voice squealing beneath him and remembered the path of the grind. His timetable had moved forward so much faster thanks to it. Of course, it wasn't the only thing he'd worked on in the last week leading up to these exams after his night with Kurenai. Thank fuck for shadow clones, to be honest. With most of his house decorating done, he'd been able to assign some of his clones to studying his new chakra armor. Specifically because they were created through the fusion of chakra or Enfuinjutsu. The seal used in its creation for absorbing ninjutsu was very reminiscent of the one within the infinite armor on his shoulder, except it automatically converted chakra absorbed into usable chakra for the wearer and added to their chakra coils. Beyond that though, there was something in it he was very, very happy to get. A seal that created a barrier ninjutsu, a powerful one at that could ward off his strongest physical punches multiple times without wavering. It had taken over 100 rapid fire blows at his strongest just to make it tremor. The only real weakness the armor had at all was a resonance with the other armors that weakened it and made it unstable. Interestingly though, while most of the armor seemed to be of chakra or with no elemental affinity, the blue trim on the ebony black armor was different. It was lined with a lot of both wind chakra and water chakra or in a perfectly symmetrical and balanced amount, which when used together, seemed to generate what Daiki was sure was ice-type chakra. Though considering how much was used in it, not something I can replicate anytime soon, he huffed. Seriously, there was a stupid amount of just water and wind chakra or, probably a good 30 to 50 million Rio worth at least. He'd give one thing to Doto at the very least. The guy went all out on his, or rather, Daiki's armor. To the point where Daiki, just from remembering the hand seals and having learned the water style, Water Dragon Jutsu thanks to Isabu, was able to replicate the man's own technique. Granted, the armor did all the heavy lifting for him, but it was still cool to be able to use even one ice-style jutsu. Honestly, I'm looking pretty damn awesome these days, Daiki admitted to himself proudly. He opened his eyes, his status screen appearing before his vision. Name, Daiki Uriai. Age, 13. Chakra capacity, 87000/87000, Elite Jonin. Strength, 172/. Endurance, 245/. Durability, 172/. Agility, 172/. Taijutsu, 203/500. Ninjutsu, 260/500. Genjutsu, 45/500. Bokijutsu, 116/500. Chakra control, 222/500. Chakra affinities. Lightning, advanced roar with the power of thunder. Water, advanced the sea parts before you. Fuinjutsu, advanced the breath hitches. God, just looking at his status screen made him want to punch his fist into the air and crow loudly about his sheer badassery. His lightning affinity had advanced when he made his little discovery with Kurenai, and his water affinity had caught up quickly thanks to the knowledge Isabu passed on to him from Yagura and all his water jutsu. He'd managed to finally get the last and most difficult of them all done just the other day thanks to his clones. His chakra capacity was getting more and more monstrous by the day, and that wasn't even getting into his physical stats or his taijutsu and ninjutsu. Not to mention, his fuinjutsu had risen up a stage as well now that he had learned everything there was to know about the seals used in the creation of the infinite armor and the chakra armor, and he had so many ideas dancing in his head. Sure, with the time using shadow clones included, he'd probably actually been training for what amounted to 2 or so years, possible more in total, but hey. Am I a badass or what? Daiki mentally preened as dismissed his status screen. He wasn't even going to acknowledge the stupid add-on descriptions to his fuinjutsu and elemental affinities. He wouldn't give whatever it was, his subconscious or otherwise, the satisfaction. You're going to end up missing the exams if you don't hurry up and get a move on, Mr. Badass, Isabu prompted dryly. Oh right. Daiki blinked, foregoing his mental masturbation and pushing himself up off the tree. It was already around 3:30 in the afternoon now and the exam started at 4. With a confident swagger in his steps, Daiki made his way into the academy and towards the top floor where room 301 was located. Sasuke did his best to block out the general noise of those around him. It was hard, really hard. Sakura and Naruto were usually hard enough to tune out, but he'd gotten used to them. But of course he couldn't be so lucky to be only dealing with them when he was busy thinking. No, he also had the loud bragging of Inuzuka to deal with, and Yamanaka harping on and arguing with Sakura about whatever nonsense they made up about him. So far, these Chunin exams weren't going well for him. Especially since he'd already been knocked flat on his ass before even reaching the first testing room. Rock Lee, huh? Sasuke frowned, doing his best to tune out his peers as they talked to the older bespectacled guy who was warning them not to make a ruckus and get the eyes of the other mass amount of genin in the room. Apparently some of them were mad or whatever about rookies like himself and his peers getting in on the exam. No, his mind was entirely on just a few standouts. That guy, he's as fast as Daiki, he thought. He wasn't too fussed about having lost really, the guy was a complete weirdo, but he was the real deal. Sakura as usual hadn't noticed at all, but he had, as had Naruto surprisingly. But then, Naruto had some depth to him that most didn't even realize, simply too spoiled in Sakura's case or ignorant in others to realize the blonde wasn't as weak as his old grades would imply. The brutal scarring over his hands that showed just how hard Rock Lee trained himself, and just how much harder Sasuke would have to train himself. Naruto, Rock Lee, Gaara, Daiki. Sasuke's thoughts trailed off as a smirk appeared on his face, ducking slightly so nobody caught sight of it. These exams were going to be exciting, a perfect place to grow stronger and test himself. And if he had his way, he'd see Daiki in the finals. A thought occurred to the Uchiha, as Kabuto explained about his ninja info cards, showing off a graph of how many people were taking the exams and from what villages and countries, over 150. Hey, Sasuke spoke up, eyeing the older gray-haired teen, do you have information on specific individuals? He asked. Oh? Kabuto gave him an interested look, have some people you're worried about? The apparent information specialist pushed up his glasses, well, of course my information isn't completely perfect, but I do have it, I even have quite a bit of information on you rookies. Sasuke grunted in understanding, ignoring the looks the rest of his graduation batch were giving him. What have you got for Gaara of the Sand, Rock Lee and Daiki Uriai? He asked. You know their names already, well, easy enough, wish you'd make it a challenge though so I can show off a bit. Kabuto pouted at him, shuffling his cards. Sasuke rolled his eyes, always a show and dance with these people, just show me. Alright, here we go. Kabuto waved him off with a smile, and looked down at his cards. First we have Rock Lee, he's a year or so older than you guys, graduated with the batch before you, he's completed 20 D-rank missions and 12 C-rank missions. His sensei is Guy. His taijutsu has improved greatly over the past year, but nothing else of note. This is his first Chunin exams and his teammates are Niji Hyuga the Rookie of the Year of the last batch and Tenten, the Kunoichi of the Year for the same batch. Barely anything of note. Sasuke mused, the most interesting being his teammates really. The busty Hyuga girl, Hababa or whatever stilled at the mention of the other Hyuga, but said nothing, keeping a placid smile on her face. Whatever, he rolled his eyes and focused on Kabuto again. Next is Gaara, he's a real newcomer, I have very little on him I'm afraid, he's completed 8 C-rank missions and wow, a B rank as well. Pretty impressive for a genin. Interestingly, it seems he's come back from each mission without a scratch. That, Sasuke could believe, something about that guy wigged him out. And his stealth ability was on par with Kakashi's. The guy had been in the same tree as the Uchiha without him ever noticing. Finally, we have Daiki Uriai. Kabuto began, before trailing off and blinking, oh wow. What? Sasuke arched an eyebrow at him. That was quite the reaction. This guy is really impressive. Kabuto gave him a shaky smile, and his eyes told Sasuke the older teen couldn't believe what he's saying. Alright, Daiki Uriai, graduated in the same batch as you, ranked overall 6th in class. Cited as being the most talented of your class by far according to an Irika-sensei, only ranked as low as he is because of lacking a specific focus for the shinobi arts and instead pursued every single one. There's a mention that should he have had a specific focus on even just 2 of the shinobi arts, he'd have been far stronger than even you Sasuke-kun when you all graduated. Seems about right. Sasuke agreed. Daiki was an utter monster when it came to training. The fact he ranked so high while pursuing every option showed how talented and hard-working he was. What, Daiki? Yamanaka scoffed, the cute muscle guy? He was alright, but no way he's better than Sasuke-kun. He's the best. She showed once again how much of an ignorant bimbo she was. Thankfully, Sakura didn't join her this time, though. He noticed how she tensed as if wanting to jump to his defense. Annoying. He wasn't so pathetic he needed someone to lie to him or about him. Daiki was stronger than him, far stronger than him now most likely since he became one of those Jinchuriki he told him about. After all, if it was a power that Itachi wanted, it was no doubt great and fearsome, especially considering according to Daiki, this specific bijou that he sealed inside himself drove Itachi off before, making his brother flee for his life, albeit at great cost, but still, the fact Itachi had backup and still ran, was a testament to the might of the three-tailed bijou, the Sanbai as Daiki called it. Hey, I'm just reading what's been put down, take your complaints up with this Irika-sensei. Kabuto shrugged off Yamanaka's complaints, but he had everyone's attention now, especially since he was talking of one of their classmates. Right, anyway, moving on, Daiki has completed, wow, holy wow, he's completed 69 D-rank missions, 3 C-rank missions, 1 B-rank mission and to top it off an honest-to-God S-rank mission. This guy's stats are off the chart, ninjutsu of possibly every element, powerful genjutsu, taijutsu that even jonin would fear to face, and rumor has it, he's killed multiple jonin, one even said to be a member of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist. And to top it all off, this guy is taking this exam as well, and without a team at that. Looks like he's our ringer this year. Sasuke resisted the urge to click his tongue. Again, information that wasn't very helpful at all. He already knew all that, even the fact Daiki didn't have a team with him for the exams. He was pretty forthcoming about it. Holy crap. Inuzuka gaped though at the revealed information, and he saw Nara visibly swallow. Seemed they were at least smart enough to catch on that the information was accurate. Though again, nothing he didn't already know. In fact, he already knew far more. Annoying, but he could deal with it. Wait, what's a ringer? Sakura piped in. Just that, a ringer in the corner. Kabuto shrugged. Most big villages, when it comes to exams, tend to send in at least one team that can show off and make their village look especially powerful and draw in more clients. Daiki-san seems to be our ringer this year, and considering he's being given the chance to take an exam as dangerous as this alone, it says a lot about how much faith the higher-ups have in his abilities. Some of the others seem to be quite awed to hear about Daiki's apparent skill. Good, Sasuke was glad. It would make things ever more so satisfying when he beat Daiki himself and showed his power. If he could overcome Daiki after all, he would be one massive step forward towards his goal of avenging his clan. Well, don't get too wound up. Daiki-san is impressive for sure, but leaf, sand, stone, cloud, mist, rain, grass, sound and more have all sent exceptionally talented genin here for the chance to show off their skills and get promoted. Kabuto laughed lightly before pausing. Well, maybe not the hidden sound, they're quite a new and very small village after all, but the rest of the hidden villages are filled to the brim with bright and amazing young talents like yourself. You shouldn't underestimate any of them, it could get you killed. Hearing that could make you lose confidence. Hibaba noted quietly. Good, Daiki had apparently done wonders for her confidence since she could even speak now in public, but she was thankfully still quiet. As a woman should be, really, the complete opposite of Sakura and Yamanaka in that respect. Yeah. Sakura grimaced in agreement with the Hyuga girl, so basically, everyone here is Dash. Kabuto nodded. Just like Rock Lee, Gaara and Daiki, everyone here is a top-tier elite from their village, he confirmed. Humph, I doubt it. Sasuke crossed his arms and rolled his eyes. Sure, there were going to be outliers, but most of them probably weren't even close to the likes of Lee, Gaara and Daiki. Hey Naruto, don't get so Dash. At Sakura's voice, Sasuke looked over in interest to see her with her hand on Naruto's shoulder. The blonde's head dipped down. For all intents and purposes, he looked dejected. He wasn't though. Sasuke knew the blonde idiot well enough to know what was about to. Ha! Naruto threw his head back and laughed, a wild grin appearing on his face, sharp canines glinting under the ceiling lights. You all better listen here, the name is Naruto Uzumaki and don't you forget it. I won't lose to any of you bastards, not even you Daiki wherever the hell you're hiding. Ha! Sasuke huffed in amusement as over 100 pairs of eyes shot towards his blonde teammate, glaring bloody daggers at his boasting. What the hell is that idiot doing, Sakura? Yamanaka spluttered, pointing at Naruto, and the rest of the batch made comments of their own. Sasuke ignored them, instead, his eyes drifting around the room. He found Rock Lee sitting with his teammates halfway into the class, and Gaara with his own teammates leaning against the wall at the window. But where was? There he is. Sasuke's gaze landed on his target. Daiki wasn't paying attention to anything or anyone, or so he made it seem. The boy was sitting at the end of one of the long desks, arms crossed behind his head, eyes closed and his feet atop the table, looking for all intents and purposes to be completely relaxed. Interestingly, Daiki's attire had changed. It showed just how serious he was taking this. Before, he tended to wear slacks and simple t-shirts, but now, he was adorned in full-on shinobi gear, his ankles bandaged to keep the standard blue shinobi pants he was wearing from catching on anything, while atop his torso, he wore a shiny ebony black chestplate trimmed with dark blue, the weird turtle pauldron that he knew absorbed chakra from training with him, clear in view. As if sensing his gaze, one of Daiki's newly crimson-red eyes opened and met Sasuke's own, before smirking his way challengingly. On instinct, his Sharingan flared to life, 2 tomo now on each eye, and he smirked right back. This was going to be fun. You know, it was funny. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Daiki snorted lightly, looking away from the little staring contest he was having with Sasuke. Kabuto had approached the 9 rookie genin once again and things played out as they had in the other timeline, for the most part. It seemed he was getting more attention than Gaara this time around though, and not just from his former classmates. Many of the other examinees now had their eyes on him. He ignored them. In his peripherals, movement through the crowd caught his attention, even as his former classmates began berating Naruto for bellowing his challenge loudly and proudly. The mummy-faced sound ninja was creeping through the crowd, readying himself to make his move. Don't mind him everyone, huh? Sakura gave a blatantly fake laugh, her arms wrapping around Naruto's neck and dragging him back. He's just an idiot, don't mind him. She tried placating. That idiot, he just painted an even bigger target on us because of his loud mouth. Shikamaru grumbled lowly. Despite the distance between them and the Nara mumbling quietly, Daiki heard him clearly. The Shinkegan was useful like that. Honestly, Daiki had to resist the urge to roll his eyes. He never got the hype around the guy and he never understood why he was promoted. He became a chunin on merit of his ability to plan and strategize, not because of his strength. If Naruto and Sasuke and such didn't get promoted, he shouldn't have. Sure, he was better at planning, but the guy didn't have the strength to be a chunin. What was he gonna do the second someone strong came along? Stall and then die? That was the best Shikamaru at the chunin exams could do, to be honest. He was pretty mediocre at everything bar his strategic abilities and didn't even have a single attacking jutsu currently. Strength and mental ability should be required for a chunin, not just mental ability. Just then, the Sound Nin made his move, dashing out of the crowd of onlookers towards Kabuto and swinging out his gauntlet-clad arm. He could have stopped all that easily, but why should he? Besides, Daiki was going to make use of the confusion. While everyone's attention was drawn to the racket Dosu made by attacking Kabuto, while the older genin fell to his knees, his glasses cracking and vomiting even after dodging, Daiki's eyes swept over to one specific team. A team from grass. His eyes landed on a tall willowy pale female dressed in yellow with a kasa hat hiding her face. He focused chakra into his eyes and peered deep into her. He frowned. Normal, he noted. There was nothing under her skin that said her appearance was being used as a disguise, and her chakra network wasn't all that impressive either, a standard genin amount really, not much different from the rank and file spread throughout the room. Ha! Put this down on your little cards, loser. The team from the Hidden Sound Village, definite chunin at the end of this. Dosu boasted loudly to everyone in the room. He's not made the switch then. Daiki realized, filtering out the words of the Sound Genin. He'd specifically waited for this moment for Orochimaru to be distracted and have less chance of noting Daiki's attention on him. But in the end, it wasn't even Orochimaru at all, yet. Lame, I could have had fun with the sound idiots and showed off a bit. Daiki grumbled inwardly. Stupid snake man. Orochimaru probably wouldn't make the switch until just before the second exam. Considering the distance between here at the Academy and Training Ground 44, there was quite an ample amount of time and opportunity to do so. Annoying, but, well, he'd just have to deal with it. And it wasn't like he could have any fun now, because... Poof! At the front of the massive classroom, a huge puff of smoke appeared, drifting away in just mere moments to reveal dozens of shinobi and kunoichi clad in gray uniforms. At the front of the group, a tall, broad-shouldered and hard-faced man with a long black leather trench coat. Quiet down, you worthless maggots. Ibiki Marino bellowed, his deep voice, like rocks grating together, almost shushing everyone immediately. Oi, you sound punks, watch your step, don't go doing as you please before the exams even begin. I apologize, we just gotta be dash. Dosa never got to finish before Ibiki snorted, shutted maggot, he spat, cutting the mummy-faced teen off, and looking around. Alright fools, my name is Ibiki Marino, and I'll be the proctor for your first exam. His eyes landed on the rookie genin for a moment, before moving on and nodding as he saw that he apparently had everyone's attention. Let me make one thing clear, you little pigs, there will be no unauthorized fighting or killing here. Any of you that disobey me and my rules, will automatically be failed. Got it, he bellowed. Daiki had to bite his lip when he saw a few people actually snap to attention as if he was some kind of drill sergeant. Right, now get your asses lined up, Ibuki nodded and ordered, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a bag. You won't be getting to choose your seats. In this bag, there are numbered tiles. Get up here and grab one. Whatever number is on there will be your seating arrangement. Now move it. Daiki didn't make a fuss, though quite a few people grumbled as they lined up in single file to grab the seating arrangement tiles from Ibuki. None more so than Naruto. He was a few places in front of Daiki, and whispering to himself, but he could hear him clearly if he focused his gaze on the blonde boy. He was freaking out about it being a written exam. Poor fucker. The line progressed, and a minute later at most, Naruto got his seating arrangement and turned around, steps wooden. Daiki grabbed him by the shoulder before the blonde could make his way past him. Daiki? Naruto blinked. So you are here. Not the time, bro. Daiki shrugged and leaned over so his lips were right next to the blonde's ear. Don't worry about filling in the questions, it's not about that. Just cheat, steal the answers from others. What? Naruto squinted at him in confusion. Daiki just shrugged and let him go, stepping past him as the line continued forward and letting the blonde go. Ibuki raised a hairless brow at Daiki when he stepped up, eyeing him with interest. Did he hear me? Daiki wondered, before shrugging internally and moving on. It didn't matter in the end. He was just making sure Naruto didn't punk out or something, since he wouldn't be with the same old Hinata from the original timeline. It wasn't like he was incapable of it either. The guy could create shadow clones, switch with them and transform on the fly without anyone even noticing. Moments later, Daiki returned to the same exact seat he'd been chilling at, waiting for the exams to start. Seat number 69. It was his special number after all. The Shinkigen was ever so useful. He found himself sitting next to a very interesting person though. An older boy, with pajama-like attire and purple face paint. Sabaka no Kankuro, or Kankuro of the desert, one of the 3 children of the Kazekage. He would have much preferred his older sister. Sup? Daiki greeted him, collapsing into his seat and kicking his feet up on the desk casually once more. Kankuro looked at him, then looked away, ignoring him, utterly dismissing him even in looking over the test sheet in front of him. Ouch, rude. Well, whatever. Daiki placed his own test sheet on the table, face down. Then he activated his Shinkigen to see through the paper itself and began trying to read the letters of the questions backwards. As long as he was waiting here for the exam to start, he may as well get some form of grind in. Never know when some crazy pants is gonna trap me in a crazy genjutsu that will warp my sense of direction or something after all, he mused. Actually, he should plan for that ever happening. Itachi could probably do that to him. He didn't plan on getting Kurenai anytime soon, ever actually. Seriously, Kurenai was a bit of a joke amongst fans for trying to genjutsu Itachi. And in this rendition, she got dabbed on and plowed all night long by a genin, moaning submissively beneath him. She really wasn't all that impressive at all beyond her body and overall looks. Not long later, once everyone was seated, Ibuki went on to explain the rules of the exam. Daiki only listened with a half ear, especially because most of the exam rules here didn't affect him as much since he was going solo right now. He didn't need to worry about anyone's points but his own. Still, he could feel a palpable tension in the air. Ibuki could really set the mood and knew how to set a tense atmosphere. Half these guys were ready to piss themselves. Daiki should learn from his example. Though he'd need to convert that scary aura of his into one of sheer badassery. On instinct, Daiki tilted his head, a kunai whizzing right past him and stabbing into the desk behind him. 76, you're out. Ibuki declared. Already? Daiki blinked. It had been less than 3 minutes. He could feel a number of eyes on him due to his relaxed position, but he ignored them, idly looking at his test questions. Number 1 was a cryptogram. Number 2 was a problem-solving question involving a shuriken, a target of 7 meters in a tree, and in what ways one could use the shuriken to take them out. To be perfectly honest, going through questions from 1 to 9, he figured he could only answer about 4 of them reliably on his own. How should I cheat? He mused, placing his pencil on the bridge of his nose and balancing it. He could easily just check out one of the planted chunin pretending to be genin and copy their answer sheet. Or he could even just copy Sakura. Easy as pie. But the whole reason he was even in this exam was to show off. So he needed to stand out not only to the examiners, but to everyone else as well. Simple and straightforward then? That'll do it. Daiki grinned lightly, looking around with his eyes and finding anyone near him with a completed test sheet already. There. One just a few rows in front of him. Pulling his feet from the desk, Daiki stood up from his seat and walked his way down to the Chunin plant. Dozens of eyes went to him. He stopped beside the Chunin. He noted the man blinking and turning to look at him in confusion, his mouth o. Daiki's fist caught him square in the face, slammed his face against the desk hard enough to smash his face through the wood. He was unconscious before he even knew what was going on. And Daiki grabbed his test sheet and walked back to his own seat, while everyone watching gaped at him. Number 69, that's 2 points. Ibiki warned him. And he still had 8 left. Sitting down, he scribbled out the Chunin's name and wrote his own, then kicked his feet back up and closed his eyes and began relaxing again. Alright, new rule, maggots, anyone pulling the same as this guy gets automatically disqualified. Ibiki amended the rules a moment later before anyone else could copy him. Ha! Within the observation room overseeing the first exam, silence prevailed. Despite the fact there was a variety of Jonin in multiple villages, none made a sound for a good few seconds. Only broken by a light snort. From Kakashi. So this is Daiki Yurei, huh? Asuma spoke up with the silence broke, observing the screen showing off room 301. Yeah, that's him. Kakashi confirmed with a nod. The kid is bold as all hell, the son of the third Hokage shook his head, and look how relaxed he is, he doesn't care at all that he's got everyone's attention now. Which is kind of the point, Kakashi shrugged, Hokage-sama put him in to attract attention, he's just following orders really. I get that, but still, Asuma shook his head and chuckled, kid has to have a massive set of balls on him, was he like that with you when you tested him Kurenai? He looked to his side and asked. Indeed, he was. Kurenai confirmed. She resisted the urge to sigh, she was doing her best to ignore the boy and focus on her own team. But, she could well confirm that he did have a set of massive balls, a set of balls she was intimately familiar with by this point, seeing as the boy had forced her to slobber all over them and worship on her knees while he had a hand fisted into her hair. Multiple times. She'd been forced to seek him out again after the first night, because she'd completely forgotten to give him his Chunin exam entrance papers with how distracted she'd been with what went down. Which reinforced for the rules of his house in respect to her, and promptly found herself on her knees, submissively worshipping his huge cock and satiating the teen's lusts once again. She barely suppressed a shiver and did her best to ignore the heat pooling in her belly. There was no love or affection between them, just pure animalistic lustful fucking that left her sore, absolutely exhausted and completely satiated. Man, I really hope my kids don't end up facing him, Asuma cringed, he'll tear them apart. Probably, though he might go easy on the Yamanaka girl, Kakashi shrugged and pointed out, he's a bit of a sucker for a pretty face, went right out of his way to help that little Hyuga girl and didn't really want anything out of her in return. He won't go easy on her at all even if she is a pretty girl. Kurenai resisted the urge to snort. He didn't go easy on her at all, in fact he quite enjoyed going as rough as possible with her and loved spanking her ass and seeing how fast and wildly he could make her big slutty tits bounce, in his own words. And she knew for a fact while he didn't pursue anything sexual with Hinata like he did her, he wasn't gentle with her either according to Hinata when they sparred and had broken her bones multiple times, mostly her fingers. Many of the foreign jonin paid special attention to their words, fishing for information on the boy. It was a testament to his ability that he had them wary without them ever seeing him fight with his little performance. Grass, stone, cloud, mist, even the jonin from sound was listening and quite blatantly. That wraps up this part of What If Luffy Became a Marine. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.